Chapter 582. An unprecedented golden age Gu and hadn't immediately left after his breakthrough. Instead, he stood within the lifespan barrier and began to observe the Abyss Dao Sea. After reaching the level of a heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal, the Abyss Dao Sea appeared much clearer in Gu An's eyes. The number of worlds and beings within the Abyss Dao Sea far exceeded those in the universe where the celestial spirit Great World was located, and by more than tenfold. CTH novel_fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Stronger Dao rules, more opportunities for creation. This was enough to nurture even more terrifying entities. As a mere heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal, Guan had already located 3 others, one residing in the Abyss Emperor's city, and the others hidden in the shadows. In places with independent consciousness, conflicts easily arose, and these 3 heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortals were clearly not united. Their destinies hindered each other, dividing the central region of the Abyss Dao Sea into 3 parts. Besides observing the forces within the Abyss Dao Sea, Guan was also curious about the creations in this place. There were many peculiar races living there, some invisible to the naked eye, existing within the Dao itself, and others were beings formed by thousands of meteors converging together, constantly changing shapes. Bizarre and marvelous, a plethora of new and strange phenomena assaulted Gu An's hard eye. Seeing new things also allowed Gu to deepen his understanding of the Dao. As a heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal, the essence of his mana was completely different from that of a golden immortal, contrasted as starkly as cloud and mud. Although there was more creation and profound mystery from being a Tai-Ching golden immortal to a heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal, what Guan felt most was sheer power. Pure power. Physical body, soul, senses, mana, etc. No aspect was lacking. Powerful in every way. A Tai-Ching golden immortal couldn't possibly annihilate a heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal. Yes, it was simply impossible. The disparity in life essence was too enormous. After this breakthrough, Guan felt he could relax for a while and enjoy the power of being a heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal. Of course, this so-called relaxation was still predicated on having finished gathering medicinal herbs. Even having reached the state of a heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal, Guan did not want to stop his path to becoming stronger. Heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal was still not enough. Guan stood within the lifespan barrier, gazing for a long time, before finally choosing to teleport back. Above, many powerful figures flashed by, none noticing Gu An's departure. Upon returning to the Taoist field of the beginningless, it was still before dawn, and Guan roamed within the forest, using his heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal senses to feel the universe. After the breakthrough, he had only 200 billion years left on his lifespan, which might seem almost eternal to mortals, but it felt perilous to him. He would need at least 2 trillion years of lifespan before he dared to challenge a higher realm. He even felt that 2 trillion years might not be enough. As long as the Abyss Dao Sea and the Celestial Court did not come seeking him, Guan had plenty of time to endure, and he hoped not to encounter any situation that required his intervention over the next 10 million years. When the sun rose, Guan began to inspect his various medicine gardens. His disciples all felt he had changed somehow, though they couldn't pinpoint exactly what was different. In the end, the disciples could only assume that after Gu had helped his descendants break free of fate, he had shed some pressures, hence the perceived changes. It wasn't until midday that Guan left the dojo. He stepped in front of Jiang Xiong, giving her a fright. After a mild complaint, Jiang Xiong joyfully hosted Guan, pulling him into her own medicine garden. This garden was planted with spirit trees similar to peach trees, filled with pink blossoms and exceptionally beautiful. After they sat down, Jiang Xiong poured wine for Guan and asked, "Was that figure in the sky before you? Although the clothes were different, I recognized you immediately." Guan smiled and said, "It was me, and it was not me. That was just my past life. The descendants of my past life gathered the bloodline dharma aspect, and summon my former self. Over the years, though Jiang Qiong hadn't cultivated in the Taoist field of the beginningless, she was always cared for by Guan. Sometimes, she would inexplicably gain enlightenment. She wasn't foolish. She didn't think it was because her talent was outstanding. She knew it was Guan looking after her. Guan never said, and she never asked. Compared to breakthroughs in cultivation level, what made her happiest was that Guan still thought of her. Past life? With such high cultivation, how far back does your past life date? Jiang Qiong asked curiously. Guan answered ambiguously, trying his best to satisfy all her curiosity. Looking upon Jiang Qiong, who was clad in white and resembled a celestial maiden, Guan could not help but think back to their first encounter more than 20,000 years ago, where Jiang Qiong had been in such a sorry state, almost like a zombie. Over the years, her demeanor had become increasingly remarkable, save for one flaw. She still disliked wearing shoes, going barefoot instead. Seemingly noticing Guan's gaze, Jiang Qiong didn't blush but huffed. I only dress so casually within my own dojo. Outside, I am the founding elder of the Gathering Flower sect, and I must maintain a certain demeanor. Guan smiled and asked, how has the Gathering Flower sect been developing recently? He was well aware of the situation, but he still asked Jiang Qiong. Compared to Jiang Qiong, he practically knew everything. Yet when interacting with people, conversation was essential. Jiang Qiong also cherished the opportunity to interact with Guan and began speaking about the development of the Gathering Flower sect. As the Supreme sect grew stronger, the sects on the continent either submitted or relocated. The Gathering Flower sect chose the latter, and the Supreme sect didn't make things difficult for them, even providing some resources. The Gathering Flower sect was now situated on an archipelago and had developed trade islands similar to Immortal's Seeking Island. There were no powerful sects nearby, the only threats being the occasional appearance of great demons in the sea, causing losses to the sect. Jiang Qiong had become a laid-back shopkeeper, frequently in seclusion, and seldom bothered by issues. The development is stable, but it's just too stable, which seems to lack prospects, Jiang Qiong remarked. Her unwillingness to leave the Gathering Flower sect stemmed from the fact that it was a creation of her own, having built too many connections here, making it difficult for her to leave. Guan reassured her with a smile. Don't worry, numerous great opportunities will soon emerge in the world, and the Gathering Flower sect will encounter them too. The key is to seize these opportunities. The opportunities he referred to were legacies from the battle court, half of which Guan had dispersed across the soil and seabeds of the human world. Though it was only half, it was enough to turn the entire celestial spirit great world upside down and push it to unprecedented heights. Some of the battle court treasures, including magic artifacts, cultivation techniques, and rich heavenly materials and earthly treasures, were nearby in the ocean. Guan had a preference for these, believing if the Gathering Flower sect managed them well, they could become a top-tier major sect of the world in the future. Really? Jiang Qiong asked with surprise. Guan smiled and replied, why would I deceive you? In a few thousand years, I will gift you a treasure that will grant you enough power to protect your own sect. The higher his realm, the more nonchalantly Guan behaved. He no longer pondered consequences too much and did whatever he wished, especially when it came to taking care of those close to him. Hearing this, Jiang Qiong became even happier. She stood up, moved closer to Guan, and reached for his chest with a giggle. What day is today that you're treating me so kindly? Or could it be that you've finally been moved by mortal feelings and missed me? Guan pushed her away and huffed. Nonsense. I'm a reader of the classics. What are the classics? Are they something low-class, like the Supreme Secret Transmission? Hearing Jiang Qiong mention the Supreme Secret Transmission made Guan somewhat tense. What Supreme Secret Transmission? I don't know about it. Hee, I've heard its author, Shun Jun, has a great relationship with you. What exactly do you do when you are alone, and what do you talk about? Can you share it with me? Jiang Qiong said coldly, her eyes full of mischief. She wasn't upset about Guan's quirks. Instead, she felt that such quirks made Guan seem more real. Supporting Dao, Sword Venerable, was too strong and too high a level for her to comprehend. Compared to the powerful Guan, she preferred the careful and calculating Guan of the past. The two began to bicker, with Guan continuously making excuses, which only spurred Jiang Xiong on. Until night fell, Guan chose to stay in Jiang Xiong's dojo and preach to her. Deep in the cosmos among the stars, where stars dazzled and clouds of light surged in breathtaking beauty, palaces floated upon a massive cloud of light that resembled a spiral stairway, with countless buildings on its surface. These palaces appeared like specks of sand, yet each structure was incredibly vast. On a cliff, Ji Xiaoyu was meditating in white clothes and a black robe. She wore a silver-beaded phoenix crown on her head, and a red Dao pattern on her forehead made her appear even more mystical. Suddenly, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor appear behind her, bowing respectfully with excitement. Emperor Chun has foreseen that the celestial spirit Great World is about to encounter an unprecedented fortune. He hopes to move the yin-yang immortal domain within the celestial spirit Great World, and the other two emperors have already agreed. Your Highness, it's time for us to return. Hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu slowly opened her eyes, a flash of brilliance in her gaze. The Tao spiritual qi and light clouds where she looked paused as if time and space had frozen. Her pupils reflected the majestic scenery of the celestial spirit Great World, her look carrying an indescribable meaning. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 583. A new reincarnation. Seeing Ji Xiaoyu not answering, simply gazing ahead lost in thought, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor could roughly guess what she was thinking. He said softly, "The one who previously eradicated the external forces should be him. Since he is still around, perhaps we can better integrate into the celestial spirit Great World. Why be so stubborn?" He knew about the pride inherent in the reincarnation Tao Emperor he used to support her. But now, Guan was simply too strong. So strong that the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor felt it was a pity not to cling to his coattails. No matter how one looked at it, encountering Guan was the greatest opportunity for both the reincarnation Tao Emperor and the entire yin-yang immortal domain. CTH Ovalfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Ji Xiaoyu still did not respond, and seeing this, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor could only sigh and turn to leave. He had just turned around when Ji Xiaoyu's voice drifted over. "Tell them, I agree, too." Hearing this, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor turned his head back in surprise, bowed to Ji Xiaoyu once more, and then immediately vanished on the spot. Ji Xiaoyu looked into the distance, murmuring softly to herself, "When will I ever catch up to you?" No one answered her, but she didn't need an answer. Her thoughts scattered, drifting back many years. Back then, Guan was still young, but his eyes were different from those of the other children in the residence. Time flowed gently. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Battle Court treasures officially began a golden era in the human world, with the first Battle Court Supreme treasure on Earth sparking a struggle among many powerful beings. Fortunately, more treasures appeared soon after, making the contention less brutal. Every sect in the human world started pursuing these treasures. The number of Battle Court relics exceeded the number of human world cultivators. After all, the Great Thousand World had just been reshaped, and the human race was not yet widespread across the entire world. The Chinkoan sect too joined in this trend, with an XIN often bringing news back to the dojo, stirring up excitement amongst the others. Unfortunately, Guan did not allow them to go out. Guan's attitude serened them down, indicating that the treasures outside did not catch his eye. After reaching the heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal, Guan's Dao intent strengthened, allowing the dojo's disciples to perceive even more. The Blood Prison Great Saint had already broken through to the wandering immortal realm first. His talent was not lacking. Before Nirvana, he was also at the limit of 9,999 years of lifespan. In the dojo, Only the celestial demon child could match him in talent. In this millennium, the yin-yang immortal domain descended upon the celestial spirit great world. Guan saw the Tao court negotiate with it, eventually coming to some agreement, and allocated a portion of the edge of the great world for the yin-yang immortal domain to settle. After returning to the celestial spirit great world, Ji Xiaoyu didn't visit the supreme sect, nor did she establish any relationship with the Ji family. Guan could hear Ji Xiaoyu's heart. She often thought of him, but she had a strong competitive spirit in her bones. She wanted to stand on equal footing with Guan. To this end, Guan could only respect her. He couldn't have everything in the world develop according to his wishes, and Ji Xiaoyu's way of thinking made him look forward to it. He had protected many people. It was rare for someone not to rely on him, and it made him curious. Miss Third, keep it up. No matter how hard you try, you will never catch up to me. Guan thought proudly, his gaze drifting to the distant sky, where there was a barrier. Inside the barrier, LV Xian and Chun Chuan were sparring again. Though there were millennium-long combat rituals, these two always sparred privately. Their relationship was excellent. Guan did not interfere. In a previous life, Xiao Chuan was just a low-level member of the Supreme Sect. LV Xian was the first genius of the sect he had looked up to and envied. Now, they had become the best of brothers. Truly, fate made fools of people. No, it should be said that destiny is wonderfully inexplicable. Guan watched for a while, then turned his gaze in another direction. Xiao Chuan and Lu Jujia had already reincarnated into the celestial spirit great world, and Yilan was soon to follow. Yilan bore the Tao Destruction Destiny seal, and Guan could feel her progressing along the path of reincarnation, drawing closer and closer to the celestial spirit great world. Reincarnation is complex, and being reborn could lead one to any other great world. But the world of one's birth had a certain pull on the being, ensuring that they would always return to their own great thousand world. From afar, Guan saw Yilan's soul and the 17 lifetimes before her. Due to practicing the innate reincarnation skill, Yilan would awaken memories of her past lives each time. She would continue to practice the innate reincarnation skill, accumulating cultivation level, which made her talent higher in every life. Perhaps it was because of the memories of past lives, but she always died alone, never married. Yet, every time she was on her deathbed, she was happy, thinking that in the next life she would meet Guan dying with longing, reborn with confusion. That was her reincarnation. Watching Yilan's past life experiences moved Guan. This silly girl. Regardless, Yilan had finally come back. Guan had already deduced where she would be reincarnated. He stood up, gave a few instructions to an XIN, and then disappeared from the spot. He arrived at a vast continent, a land even larger than the Tai Tsang continent, with imperial dynasties and innumerable sects established. It is worth mentioning that this place fell under the jurisdiction of the Tao Court. Guan appeared in a mountainous forest and started walking in a certain direction. Along the way, he had already calculated the destiny of Yilan in this life. After 17 lifetimes of accumulation, the innate reincarnation skill would grant Yilan an exceptional talent, which destined her life to be extraordinary and would also bring her into cause and effect with the Tao Court. Guan was not afraid of trouble. He decided Yilan should have a smooth and comfortable life this time, without undergoing any hardships. Thinking of the Tao Court, Guan also remembered Lu Han, a former reincarnation body, who also had grievances with the Tao Court in his lifetime. Of course, these two Tao Courts were not the same entity. In a vast multitude of the Great Thousand Worlds, there were many forces bearing the name of Tao Court. No matter which branch of the Tao Court it was, the fact that they bore the Tao in their name was enough to prove their ambition. After walking some distance, Guan saw a mountain villa. The cultivators in this villa were only at the Foundation establishment realm. Since they had no hope of advancing in immortal cultivation, they retreated from a secular world to live an ordinary life. Guan's demeanor suddenly became subdued. His magical treasures vanished, and he changed into simple black clothing, with the Cyan Hong's sword and White Spirit's sword hanging at his waist. Although his appearance did not change, he instantly transformed from immortal to mortal, like a martial hero from the martial world. He approached the gate of the mountain villa and knocked on the door. It took a dozen or so breaths before someone came to open it. The door was opened by a young servant, who cautiously assessed Gu-un and asked, "Can I help you?" Gu-un smiled and said, "My name is Gu-in, a wanderer of the world, and I would like to request lodging for a few days. Can you pass the message along? I won't stay for free." The young servant wanted to refuse, but after hearing Gu-an's offer, he hesitated for a moment and said, "Wait here." Clang! The door was closed again. The mighty heaven-opening Daluo, Immortal, stood closed out by mortals. Gu-in found it amusing. He didn't feel insulted at all. After all, this villa would be Yi-Lan's home in the future. After a while, the door opened again, and Gu-in was welcomed in. Sunlight poured down, shining on the courtyard wall beside it. In the cracks of the wall, green sprouts began to emerge, growing faster and faster. By the time the entire courtyard wall was covered with weeds and vines, 18 years had passed. The door opened, and a girl in yellow clothes stepped out quickly, followed by Gu-in. The girl in yellow looked 16 or 17, with delicate features and a lively figure. Her long hair was tied into 2 braids draped over her shoulders. After stepping down from the steps, she turned around to look at Gu-in. "Brother Gu, where shall we go play today? I heard there's a demon haunting nearby. Let's go catch it." The girl in yellow asked expectantly, her face brimming with the radiant smile of youth, like the bright morning sun. Gu-in looked at her and cast lifespan detection. Shaolan, Qi Cultivation Realm 3rd, Layer 17/160/9999. Her maximum lifespan had finally risen to 9,999 years. Shaolan was born with a lifespan limit of 7,000 years. Over the years, Gu-in used his own Tao intent to aid her enlightenment in her dreams, up until this day. Everything was so coincidental. Today, Shaolan was to encounter a turning point in her life. Gu-in wore a smile, which made Shaolan blush. She glared at Gu-in and asked, "Brother Gu, why aren't you speaking? Are you thinking?" She hadn't finished her words when she suddenly sensed something and turned around sharply. Looking down the mountain path, she saw a woman in white clothes coming from the forest. Her cold and beautiful face, along with the long zither on her back, made her seem like a fairy walking through the woods, stunning Shaolan, who had always stayed within 100 miles of the area. The woman in white's gaze fell on Shaolan. Her eyes were calm, but such calm only lasted for 2 breaths. Then, her pupils dilated suddenly, and in almost an instantaneous movement, she appeared in front of Shaolan and grabbed her right wrist. "What are you doing?" Shaolan cried out in shock, trying to shake off the woman's hand, but it was futile. The woman in white stared at her intently, muttering to herself, "Such a constitution is rare in the world." Gu-in did not intervene, amused by the scene. This woman possessed the cultivation level of a wandering immortal realm. She would be Shaolan's first teacher, leading her onto the path of immortal cultivation. Gu-in suddenly felt very gratified. Vast seas had turned into mulberry fields, the world had changed, and the human world was indeed a different scenery. Fortunately, the sun, moon, and stars still existed, and she was also right in front of his eyes. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 584. Obsession. Shaolan felt like she was dreaming today, as if she had encountered an immortal who praised her exceptional talent and wanted to take her as a disciple. After witnessing the immortal's display of techniques, her father, whom she considered the mightiest, actually knelt down and kowtowed. Everything was so dreamlike. Even until dusk, Shaolan still hadn't recovered from shock. "What's the matter? Don't want to pursue immortal cultivation?" A familiar voice came, interrupting Shaolan's trance. She turned her head and saw Gu-in walking into the garden. Seeing Gu-in, Xiao Lan's anxiety dissipated somewhat, and she answered, "It's not that I don't want to. It's just that I'm a little scared. After all, I have never been outside before, and my master, says she wants to take me to Dao Court, which seems to be very powerful." She began to share her true inner feelings, and Guan came over to listen to her talk earnestly. In the end, Xiao Lan said helplessly, "If only someone could go with me, that would be great. Unfortunately, my brothers and sisters are not recognized by the master." Guan blinked and said, "I can accompany you. Your master has already taken me as a named disciple. Although there's still a difference in status compared to you, it won't be difficult to accompany you in the future." At that, Xiao Lan's eyes widened in excitement, and she grabbed Gu's arms, asking, "Really? Have I ever lied to you?" "Manor Master Gu has already entrusted me to take good care of you," Guan said with a smile, and as he spoke, he raised his hand to ruffle Xiao Lan's hair. Having spent 18 years at Xiao Manor, Guan had long been integrated in a life there, and everyone held him in high regard. With his insight, Guan had also established a deep friendship with Manor Master Xiao, and since he had watched Xiao Lan grow up, the Manor Master was very comfortable trusting him. It is worth mentioning that Xiao Lan's name Lan was chosen by Guan himself, which attested to the great trust he had earned in Xiao Manor. That's wonderful. We'll explore the realm of immortal cultivation together. Xiao Lan was ecstatic, swinging Gu's arm excitedly. Ever since childhood, she had loved playing with Guan because he would fulfill her every wish. She shook off the earlier trepidation and confusion, becoming extremely excited about what lay ahead in her life. 2 days later, the white-robed woman known as Sage Su took Guan and Xiao Lan and left. Everyone in Xiao Manor stood at the gates to see them off. Xiao Lan's mother cried uncontrollably, while Manor Master Xiao's eyes were filled with hope. His spiritual root qualification was limited, but Xiao Lan's encounter gave him hope that perhaps he could gain the chance for longevity through his daughter. Partings are always sorrowful, but fortunately, Xiao Lan had Gu's company. Over 100 miles away from Xiao Manor, she became lively again. Without concern for Sage Su's immortal status, she chased after her and incessantly asked about Dao Court, chattering the whole way. Guan followed behind the two, enjoying the scenery along the way. He replaced himself with a clone, while his true self went to gather medicinal herbs. Sage Su was very gentle and indulgent toward Xiao Lan. As for Guan, though she was not as enthusiastic, she gave him no cold shoulder, and the atmosphere during the journey was rather pleasant. Night fell. The three stopped in a forest to rest. Sage Su had no plans to return to Dao Court straight away. She was traveling the human world, experiencing life, with plans to return to Dao Court after the journey's end. During this period, she would teach Xiao Lan the techniques for cultivation. Xiao Lan was very excited and couldn't settle down, even after half a day had passed. "Master, tell us about Dao Court and also the realm of immortal cultivation. I've heard from Father that cultivators have their own hierarchies. While mortals may not see them, the realm of immortal cultivation is vast and magnificent, with waves of grandeur and heroes emerging one after another." Xiao Lan asked Sage Su. Leaning on Guan, Sage Su was somewhat displeased with their close interaction, but she did not let it show and instead started to introduce Dao Court. In Sage Su's description, Dao Court was the most powerful sect under the heavens, with countless branches. She mentioned one famed name after another, all prominent figures within Dao Court. "My disciple, your talent is no less than theirs. As long as you are willing to work hard, your teacher will help you surpass them and become the top prodigy of Dao Court," Sage Su declared to Xiao Lan with a burning gaze. Xiao Lan became even more elated. She sat up, tapping Guan on the shoulder with a triumphant smile. "Brother Gu, I will be the top prodigy in the world someday, and you just wait for me to protect you." Guan laughed and said, "Good, I'm already looking forward to it." Sage Su slightly furrowed her brow. In her eyes, Guan was not worthy of Xiao Lan, and moreover, the path that Xiao Lan must walk did not require romantic entanglements. To become a top prodigy in Dao Court, one must devote all their energy to cultivation. She didn't stop her, though, knowing that once Xiaolan experienced the power and splendor of Dao Court, she would eventually lose interest in Guan. Her gaze toward Guan became one of pity. To be abandoned was not a good feeling, and after all, this child was still her disciple. She would ensure he had a good end in the future. Listening to Sage Su's inner thoughts, Guan almost laughed out loud, but he was an excellent actor and restrained himself. Xiaolan, unaware of their thoughts, was still indulging in her dreams of a cultivator's life. That year, Xiaolan began her qi refinement. Sage Su not only taught her cultivation techniques, but also provided her with elixirs, which greatly accelerated her cultivation speed. The following year, Guan gifted Xiaolan the white spirit sword, which delighted her immensely. She had grown up and had a budding understanding of affection. She realized her feelings for Gu and resembled that of a married couple in the human world. Whenever this thought crossed her mind, her cheeks reddened, and she couldn't help stealing glances at Guan. Neither of them pointed out this unspoken understanding, savoring the hazy romantic feelings. Although Sage Su did not expressly prevent it, she often took Guan and Xiaolan to observe mortals suffering for love, hoping to make Xiaolan realize that love was not reliable. However, Xiaolan remained unaffected and felt even more fortunate that her brother Gu was not like those men. In the blink of an eye, 50 years went by swiftly. Xiaolan had reached the cultivation level of the divinity transformation realm, and her talent symbolized by the lifespan limit of 9,999 years was fully evident. According to Sage Su, if Xiaolan had cultivated within Dao Court, her progress would have been faster. Gu An's apparent cultivation level had reached the core formation realm, which was extraordinary in the Tai-Tsang continent, but barely noteworthy in Sage Su's eyes. Over those 50 years, they visited 12 dynasties, experienced the customs of various places, and encountered other cultivators, demons, and ghosts. Xiaolan had matured, letting go of the ties in her braids, and gradually developed the demeanor of a daughter of heaven. No matter how much higher her realm was than Gu An's, her feelings for him had not faded, but rather deepened. It used to be Guan taking care of her, but now the roles had reversed. Whenever Guan remained silent, she would ask him what was wrong, fearing he was under mental stress. This bemused and sometimes frustrated Guan, while also increasing Sage Su's dissatisfaction. She couldn't fathom why Xiaolan was so fond of Guan. Before, Xiaolan had never left the manor and had not met men more outstanding than Guan. So Sage Su could understand her feelings. CTH Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. But now, having seen more of the world, and yet being even more fond of Guan, Sage Su found it utterly baffling. The worst part was, Sage Su realized it was becoming increasingly difficult for her to intervene. Her intuition told her that if she tried to force them apart, Xiaolan would turn against her. On a sweltering summer day, the three walked along a large river, where waves slapped the banks and white gulls soared, creating a majestic and melancholic atmosphere. "Brother Gu, are you hot? Do you need me to cast a spell for you? Brother Gu, are you tired? Do you need a rest? Brother Gu, look over there. Isn't that demon bird cute? Do you like it? Do you want me to catch it for you?" Listening to these incessant questions, not only Sage Su grew weary, but even Guan felt it was a bit much. "I'm at least at the core formation realm level. Why are you treating me like some delicate scholar?" Guan said, rather helplessly. Clad in white, with makeup enhancing her fairy-like appearance, Xiaolan stood beside him prettily. Hearing his words, she blinked and said softly with a giggle, "Well, I just can't help it." For some reason, she was always thinking about Gu, and sometimes to the extent that she wouldn't even listen to her master's words. As long as she looked at Guan, she felt elated and considered herself the luckiest person in the world. While they spoke, she couldn't resist hugging Gu An's arm, as though afraid he might leave. Guan was torn between helplessness and being touched by her actions. He hadn't cast any spell on Xiaolan. This was an emotion that transcended reincarnation. Yilan's love for him had become an obsession through the cycles of reincarnation. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 585. The world's number oneage, Sue really didn't want to look at the young lady Xiaolan's posture, her eyes fixed on the great river ahead, her brows slightly furrowed. She sensed a faint trace of demon qi, enigmatic even to her realm of existence. The opponent's cultivation level was likely higher than hers. Xiaolan had clung to Guan for quite some time before she finally, reluctantly, came to Sage Su's side, asking with curiosity, "Master, since just now, you have been furrowing your brows. What are you looking at?" Sage Su turned her head to look at her, thinking, "Have you finally remembered your teacher? There seems to be a great demon hidden in the river ahead, and am hesitating whether to change our course." Sage Su replied softly. Xiaolan's eyes immediately lit up, and she said, "What kind of great demon? Compared to the endless flood dragon we encountered before, which one is stronger?" "This demon is probably stronger than your teacher." Sage Su shook her head, unafraid to show weakness in front of her disciple. Hearing this, Xiaolan subconsciously looked at Guan, then turned back to Sage Su and frowned. "Then we should change routes." Sage Su felt both relieved and helpless. Relieved because Xiaolan wasn't so reckless, but helpless because the girl considered everything with Guan as the primary factor. Guan's gaze drifted to the distant great demon. Downstream in the great river was a vast lake that resembled a boundless ocean, where a demon and a great cultivator were engaged in combat, vying for the battle court's legacy treasures. That great cultivator was adept in the Qi concealment technique, not revealing the slightest trace of his aura, making the battle not earth-shatteringly noticeable. The great demon was likewise afraid of the treasure's Qi leaking out, endeavoring to contain its demon Qi, but still leaking quite a bit. Watching their combat, Guan also got some ideas. CTH Novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. What kind of Dao treasure should he refine for Xiaolan? When autumn came, the third medicine valley gradually took on a withered yellow hue. Under an ancient tree, Long Tongue sat in meditation. His robe fluttered slightly, with Jin Qi swirling around him like various strands of dragon Qi. Long Qing approached him with someone in tow, none other than the emperor of the Tai Tsong dynasty, Li Xiandao. Dressed in a golden robe and topped with a dragon crown, Li Zuando's imperial presence was unmistakable, drawing frequent glances from Medicine Valley disciples along the way. Ever since his nirvana, Li Xiandao had truly displayed his dominance. Reigning for 20,000 years, he had become the god in the hearts of Tai Tsong imperial dynasty's people. He and Long Qing were the two most powerful individuals in the Tai Tsong continent. Many feared that a rift between them would lead to chaos, yet their relationship had always been amiable. This cordiality allowed the Supreme Sect and Tai Tsong imperial dynasty to interact harmoniously, resolving any conflicts by discussion. Li Zuando's eyes shone the moment he saw Long Tongue. He had always harbored a bold hunch. The enigmatic outer heaven power had previously sought Long Qing, and the emergence of the dragon battle dharma aspect had strengthened his conviction. He thought Long Tongue bore a resemblance to Gu and the first time he saw him. His features had a sharper edge than Guan's, but their facial structures were highly similar. Upon reaching Long Tongue, Long Qing spoke, "Tengeir, this is His Majesty of the Tai Tsong Imperial Dynasty, an old friend of my master. Pay your respects quickly." Hearing this, Long Tongue immediately stood up to salute Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao smiled, saying, "Seeing you reminds me of the first time I met Yang Jian." Yang Jian. Long Tongue had, of course, heard the name. He was a legend of the Supreme Sect, a senior brother to his father, who had made great contributions to the Tai Tsong imperial dynasty. He was currently the strongest in the dynasty. Before the ancestor made his presence known, he had admired Yang Jian the most. In the Tai Tsong continent, anyone over the age of 6 knew Yang Jian's tales, which had spread Journey to the West far and wide, turning it into an enduring classic. It had been canonized by the dynasty, despite some content being subversive. Follow me from now on. I will not treat you poorly. It'll enable you to become another Yang Jian, or even surpass him, said Li Xiandao, filled with boundless aspiration. After hearing this, Long Tongue did not respond right away, but looked towards Long Qing. Long Qing nodded, saying, I do not wish the Long family to be too closely tied to the supreme sect. Following His Majesty to establish some achievements is quite good. Once you get established, the Long family will move out. Long Tongue had long been aware of the Long clan's destiny, so he had no doubts. He gave Li Xiandao a fistful salute in acceptance, which pleased Li Xiandao even more. Pulling him to sit down, they reminisced about the old times. Upon hearing Li Xiandao mention his ancestor Guan, Long Tongue became interested. Now, what he was most curious about and aspired to know was what kind of person Ancestor Guan really was. Li Xiandao started from his first encounter with Guan, and learning that the ancestor had once posed as a menial disciple made Long Tongue even more intrigued. When Long Tongue found out that historical texts like The Investiture of the Gods and Journey to the West and writings by the Supreme Immortal Venerable were all authored by his ancestor, his eyes widened. No wonder these texts were must-reads for disciples and even studied as history. Now he believed it. Perhaps it was truly trials his ancestor lived through. Long Qing watched Long Teng's expressions and smiled. Even though he planned to sever the Long clan's ties with the supreme sect, he didn't wish his descendants to drift apart from the primordial ancestor. Without the primordial ancestor, there would be no Long family. This was something that must not be forgotten. An hour swiftly passed. Li Xiandao props himself up on his knees, laughs, and says, I intend for you to train at the Dao court for some time. Upon your return, I will declare you great general. What follows will be an era unlike any before, as we intend to sweep across all imperial dynasties and establish a unified imperial dynasty, creating merits for the common people. I need you for this. It will be a long and arduous task. You will face countless battles. Hearing this, Long Teng's eyes immediately burn with passion. Even his breathing becomes rapid. Is the Dao court really that impressive? Long Tongue asks curiously. In today's world, it is considered a top-tier Dao court. Of course, if your ancestor were still with the supreme sect, the Dao court wouldn't even be worthy of carrying his shoes. I've arranged everything, and upon your arrival, you just need to cultivate. They'll have someone accompany you to handle everything. Thank you, Your Majesty. Long Tongue responds excitedly, his favor toward Li Xiandao growing significantly. For Long Qing, this is the first time he truly senses Li Zuando's charismatic personality. No wonder Brother Yang Jian has willingly served him for so many years. Serving the imperial power is well and good. It meant that, however strong the Long family became, there would always be someone above them. That's what Long Qing thought as he looked at Li Xiandao and Long Tongue. He started to look forward to Long Teng's performance in the years to come. 80 years had passed since Xiao Lan left Xiao Manor. Sage Su finally prepared to return to the Dao court, and before leaving, Xiao Lan wanted to visit Xiao Manor one last time. Sage Su agreed. This time, Sage Su didn't travel on foot. She directly cast a spell, taking Xiao Lan and Guan with her, and within half an hour, they were back at Xiao Manor. The trio stayed for 2 days before departing. Before leaving, Xiao Lan left behind plenty of cultivation resources for Xiao Manor to soar. Many of these resources came from Sage Su herself. Sage Su understood Xiao Lan's intentions very well. It was normal for the entire household to ascend to heaven when one person achieved immortal cultivation. She also wanted Xiao Lan to cultivate without any concerns. The three of them took to the clouds and headed for the Dao court. As they neared the Dao court, Sage Su turned to look at Xiao Lan wanting to say something, but seeing Xiao Lan holding tightly to Guan's arm, she swallowed her words. Never mind. It wasn't like the girl was neglecting her cultivation. Once her feelings for Guan faded, everything would return to normal. Guan was also full of interest in the Dao court, as many old acquaintances had joined its ranks. In the previous crisis from Outer Heaven, The Tao court had demonstrated the responsibility and ambition befitting the world's #1 sect. Their reputation soared after that battle, and more sects believed the Tao court to be worthy of leading them, trustworthy to hold the position of alliance hierarch. The Tao court was not stingy either. They did not require other sects to submit, but simply to form an alliance. For each ally, they provided opportunities to cultivate Taoist techniques. As disciples from other sects returned from training, the Tao court's reputation continued to grow. Xiaolan, too, eagerly anticipated the Tao court. She said she wanted Guan to stay in her cave mansion. According to Sage Su, with her talent, she was entitled to a high level of treatment, and her cave mansion was rich with spiritual energy. Facing her anticipation, Guan agreed, causing Sage Su to shake her head but say no more. Before long, the magnificent sight of the Tao court appeared before them. The Tao court occupied an entire continent, and above that continent, a layer of cloud seas had formed. On these cloud seas were built dojos and cities. With the higher the cultivation level, the higher the residence. Even before setting foot on the continent, one could feel its magnificent destiny, something neither the former Immortal dynasty nor Holy Court could compare with. Guan detected the presence of the Saint Minister and other high-ranking officials of the Holy Court. The Tao Court's swift growth had much to do with the contributions of former members of the Holy Court and Immortal dynasty. Precisely speaking, the Tao Court was an amalgamation of the former overlords of the Great Thousand World before its reconstruction, with a complex interweaving of factions. This was why the Tao Court did not annex other sects, but chose to form alliances. Their essence, too, was an alliance of sections. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 586, Variables under the guidance of Sage Su. Guan and Xiaolan were successfully initiated into the Tao Court, becoming true disciples of the Tao Court, while Xiaolan became Sage Su's direct disciple. With treatment and status far surpassing, Guan Xiaolan's first cave mansion featured an interior space so vast it resembled the Third Medicine Valley, which made Guan reflect upon the deep foundations of the Tao Court. It should be known that although Xiaolan had extraordinary talent, her cultivation level wasn't high, yet the cave mansion she received was still better than those of over 1 million other disciples with superior cultivation. After moving into the cave mansion, Xiaolan could no longer hide her petty concerns, but Guan sternly criticized her, telling her to focus on cultivation, as longevity was the true path. This made her feel ashamed and abandon those trivial thoughts in favor of earnest cultivation. Guan didn't stay for nothing. He began helping Xiaolan plant medicinal herbs and manage the cave mansion, allowing her to concentrate on her cultivation. By the time he had filled the entire cave mansion with medicinal herbs and organized everything neatly, Sage Su was very pleased with his performance when she came to visit. Sage Su suddenly thought that there were still many redeeming qualities about Guan, and perhaps he was having a positive influence on Xiaolan, who was now able to dedicate herself entirely to cultivation. You're doing well. Keep helping her, and she will be your greatest opportunity on the path of immortal cultivation, Sage Su said before she left, and Guan suddenly felt as if he were back in his old line of work. He shook his head and chuckled, not minding it, for helping Xiaolan was something he did willingly, and it also allowed him to conveniently snatch lifespan. Xiaolan, who practiced the innate reincarnation skill, could easily awaken memories of her previous life if subjected to a shock. And in this life, she had experienced smooth sailing without any signs of regaining those memories. Guan wasn't in a hurry for her to recover her memories because the longer she lived in this life, the deeper her understanding of the Great Tao would become. Of course, Guan wouldn't always stay in the cave mansion with her. Occasionally, he would switch with his clone while his true self was busy with other matters. Cultivation was a lengthy affair. The higher the realm, the more time was needed for secluded meditation. In the blink of an eye, another millennium passed, and Gu An's yearly income of lifespan had increased to 40 million years within this year. Over 1,000 years, Xiaolan had reached the Nirvana realm and was making rapid strides toward the loose, immortal realm. During this period, she had returned to Xiao Manor twice, helping Xiao Manor transform into a cultivation family. Unfortunately, Manor Master Xiao's maximum lifespan was too short, and he had passed away some years ago. One day, Sage Su sent a message to Xiaolan, which led her to find Guan and leave the cave mansion with him. There are over 10,000 branches within the Dao Court, and the competition is fierce. It's said that there will be an enlightenment conference soon, and disciples from other sects will also be attending. Master wants us to go to Dao City to broaden our horizons, Xiaolan said with a smile as she flew on a cloud beside Guan. Having attained the Nirvana realm, she still exuded a lively temperament. Although she was now 1,000 years old, she had spent most of that time in secluded cultivation, which made her feel as if she had only lived 1 year, with few memories retained. We should indeed take a good look, Guan smiled. His gaze had already reached Dao City. Coincidentally, his descendant Long Tongue was also in that city, currently engaging in a combat practice with someone. Within his realm, Long Tongue had won 97 consecutive battles against talents from various sects, making his name resonate throughout the city. Martial resolution was there, too. Guan had always kept an eye on this brother who would understand the Dao whenever he felt disheartened. A long time ago, Martial Resolution had ventured out alone, enduring many hardships, which helped him achieve enlightenment time after time. For this very reason, he had not returned to the Supreme Sect. Martial Resolution and Long Tongue didn't know each other, and Long Tongue never claimed to be from the Supreme Sect. At the moment, Martial Resolution was among the crowd watching the match, admiring Long Tongue's talent. Dao City was vast, and Guan wasn't worried about bumping into Martial Resolution. Unless he wanted to see Martial Resolution, there was no chance they would meet. Right now, Guan only wanted to accompany Xiaolan and help her grow. Along the way, Xiaolan chatted nonstop, talking about Dao City before moving on to discuss her cultivation achievements. She even wanted to teach Gu and her spells. Although they shared the same master, the inheritances they received were different. They chatted and laughed, flying for the duration of 1 stick of incense before finally arriving at Dao City. With that, Guan was ready to relax and enjoy a leisurely stroll with Xiaolan. Xiaolan also treasured these rare moments of leisure, clinging to Gu N's arm the entire time and unwilling to let go, giving the impression that they were Dao companions. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, within Gu An's courtyard, Celestial Demon Child approached Shunjun, who was watching her control the Taiqing True Fire under the artifact refining cauldron. After observing for a while, she asked, "Miss Shun, do you feel like the Master's heart is always elsewhere?" Shunjun replied, "Definitely outside, probably caught by some woman's heart." When facing the disciples in the dojo, Guan didn't need to leave a clone to pretend, so everyone could feel his frequent outings. As soon as Celestial Demon Child heard this, she couldn't help but widen her eyes and asked, "If so, aren't you worried?" "What's there to worry about? We've followed him for an endless time. Be content. Besides, do we really want to restrain him? Even if we had the power, which we don't, why would we?" Shunjun said nonchalantly, her gaze fixed on the Taiqing True Fire. Celestial Demon Child pouted and said, "I naturally wouldn't dare control the Master. I'm just curious." Shunjin smiled and said, "It's probably some past acquaintance reincarnated. Otherwise, he wouldn't spend so much time with them." "Past acquaintance?" Celestial Demon Child became interested and asked which past acquaintance it was. Shunjin glanced at her and said teasingly, "There are probably only 2 people whose companionship he would cherish. One is the G family's 3rd young miss, and the other is his junior sister. I bet it's his junior sister, 9 out of 10. She began to recount the story of Gu In and Yilan, while Celestial Demon Child listened attentively. The story of Gu In and Yilan was simple, but Celestial Demon Child felt a sense of warmth listening to it. She had heard many heart-wrenchingly beautiful love stories, But after hearing this one, she suddenly thought that the person the master liked most in his heart might indeed be Miss Yi. The master was so formidable, invincible in the world, yet he chose to live hidden in the mountains. This was enough to prove his temperament. Suddenly, "Are you talking about me behind my back?" Gu An's voice interrupted the conversation between the two women, startling them as they turned to see Gu and standing right behind them. Celestial Demon Child's face flushed with embarrassment, while Shunjun remained composed. Guin walked between them to the artifact refining cauldron and extended his divine sense into it. Inside was the Dao treasure he was refining for Shaolan, almost complete. After reaching the heaven-opening Daoyuo Immortal realm, Gu An's speed and strength in crafting Dao treasures had increased. He planned to give Shaolan a great gift to make her path as a Heaven's Pride child even easier. Celestial Demon Child moved closer to Guin and curiously asked, "Master, has Miss Yi really reincarnated?" Shunjun guessed correctly. Guin replied, then briefly recounted the reincarnations of Yi Lan over the years. Hearing that Yi Lan had endured more than a dozen reincarnations without forgetting Guin, even Shunjun was touched. Celestial Demon Child's eyes reddened with emotion as she expressed a desire to meet Shaolan. "Focus on your cultivation. Don't let her surpass you," Guin teased without giving a direct answer. Celestial Demon Child boasted with a proud smile, "I'm a wandering immortal. It won't be easy for her to catch up to me." Shunjun, on the other hand, asked out of curiosity, "Is her talent in this life very high?" "Very high." Gu An's answer instilled a sense of urgency in Celestial Demon Child. She did not linger any longer and quickly returned to her training. Shunjun also did not disturb Gu An's refining any further. Shaolan could not bring any pressure to her. She preferred seeking enlightenment rather than blindly pursuing cultivation levels. The true meaning of the great Dao brought her joy. Refining Dao treasures was simple for Guin now. He didn't need to concentrate intently. He was paying attention to someone else, someone far away in another great world. Zhang Buku. He had been sent by the Buddha Immortal to the Tai's great world to search for the divine exotic realm master. The two had already reunited, but had encountered difficulties within the Tai's great world. This predicament would cause both to be severely injured, but they would eventually escape with their lives. So Guin decided not to intervene. Knowing the future, he still watched because a variable had appeared in the fight. Sarthana Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. This person was not in Zhang Buku's fate before, but now this person would frequently appear in Zhang Buku's life and even build a very close relationship with him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 587. The illusory celestial court. The vast sea churned, and storm clouds obscured the heavens, as bolts of lightning continuously flashed across the sky, creating an overwhelmingly oppressive atmosphere between the heavens and the sea. Zhang Buku, dressed in a dark red battle armor, levitated mid-air, clutching a long spear. Behind him stood the divine exotic realm master back-to-back with him. They both stared into the distance, where formidable figures blocked every direction, these powerhouses maintaining their distance while conjuring a formation. Beside Zhang Buku was another figure, positioned 5 zhang away. This individual's garments were tattered, his face smeared with grime, and his hair a complete mess, much like a beggar. His frame was frail, yet his face wore a mocking smile amid the encircling enemies, in stark contrast to the tense expressions of Zhang Buku and the divine exotic realm master. "Hey, Zhang Buku, see for yourself. Wouldn't you rather give the treasure to me? At least you wouldn't have to die. Any regrets?" The frail man teased as he looked at Zhang Buku. Zhang Buku didn't respond, but the divine exotic realm master coldly retorted, "Su Yu, don't you have to die as well?" The thin man named Su Yu spread his hands indifferently. "My death doesn't matter. am merely experiencing the reincarnation tribulation. If I die, there's still the next life. You, however, are the real deal. If you die, you truly die. Hearing this, the eyes of the divine exotic realm master filled with frost. All three of you dare to harm my son. No one will escape today. A roar, akin to thunder, reverberated beneath the storm clouds, and a vast fury caused the distant clouds to disperse. A statue, larger than mountains and possessing 8 arms, closed in. Each arm wielded a divine weapon, while a white-robed man with flowing silver hair, ferocious face, and eyes filled with killing intent stood atop the statue's head. Zhang Buku looked at the 8-armed statue and said, "Even as a reincarnation body, you probably don't want to die. Let's fight together, and once we break out, it'll give you a fair chance to compete for the divine treasure." Upon hearing this, Suyu grinned, revealing rows of blackened teeth, and chuckled. "You sure understand the stakes. Let's break out together then, and don't fall behind. I won't look back." With that, he turned and walked in the opposite direction toward the 8-armed statue, flying off, and ahead of him were many cultivators blocking the horizon. This battle drew the attention of many great powers from afar, with Guan observing from the furthest distance within the celestial spirit great world. While crafting a Tao treasure, Guan watched the battle, focusing mainly on Suyu. Suyu didn't lie to Zhang Buku. He truly was a reincarnation body. His original self wasn't simple. Guan could sense that their cultivation levels were almost equal, and he possessed the celestial Tao destiny. This meant this person was likely a celestial god from the celestial court. Had Guan not broken through to become a heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal, he might not have been able to see through the cause and effect of Su Yu's original self. The encounter between Su Yu and Zhang Buku was no coincidence, since Zhang Buku was an inheritor of Buddha Immortal, who also had ties with the celestial court. Fortunately, judging from Zhang Buku's fate, Su Yu had no intention of harming him, but rather to support him. Although curious, Guan had no intent to probe further. Su Yu was unaware of his existence. Why should he provoke needless trouble? Even for the topmost great powers of the Great Thousand World, the celestial court remained an enigma, ethereal and elusive. Yet in the 3,000 great worlds, many celestial gods roamed. Some knew their identities, but chose to feign ignorance. The karma of celestial gods was immense. Even with only the celestial spirit god guarding the celestial spirit great world, many forces dare not forcibly enter. It seemed there existed a certain place where, with the right authority's permission, and Opharth guardians of the Great Thousand World. Guan watched for a while longer before turning his attention away. His present life was calm. He did not wish to entangle too soon with the celestial court. Unless absolutely necessary, Guan would not provoke the celestial court and aim to survive within the celestial spirit great world. Guan couldn't help but think of the celestial spirit god. In this life, Bai Sheng, with Su Jin's help, had already embarked on the path of immortal cultivation. Guan hoped he would possess a heart of compassion. That way, the celestial spirit great world could have a celestial god. A celestial god not only shields the cosmos, but also stabilizes the celestial court. Guan entertained the thought of persuading the celestial spirit god because, in pursuit of the immortal palace's treasures, the celestial spirit god had violated the principles of the celestial gods, indicating a lack of complete loyalty to the celestial court. Although the celestial spirit god had once aimed to destroy the celestial spirit great world, that had been a mission assigned by the celestial court, which he had delayed for many years. Across the ages, whenever a threat to the celestial spirit great world emerged, the celestial spirit god didn't wait for explanations. He just executed them. This approach, at least, spared many beings from numerous calamities. Celestial spirit god, I truly look forward to your future. I hope you won't disappoint me. If it doesn't work out, I might have to slay a god. Guan thought to himself, and a smile appeared on his face. Before that, he would continue to enjoy a peaceful life. When Xiao Lan naturally awakened her past life memories, he would let her choose whether to stay in the Taoist field of the beginningless or continue to traverse the world. Nowadays, the celestial spirit Great World seemed small in Gu An's eyes, where he was omnipotent and could dominate everything. The Enlightenment Convention lasted a full 5 years. Each dojo had its own enlightenment platform, and those who excelled in enlightenment were announced throughout the cities, becoming renowned across the world. Xiao Lan did not disappoint. Her comprehension of the great Tao touched the steel, marking her prominence, and Guan could see Sage Su and her fellow cultivators ecstatic at her side. Search *the fire at website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Sage Su was usually composed and even somewhat aloof, but faced with Xiao Lan's remarkable achievements, she couldn't maintain her composure. Fortunately, Xiao Lan did not witness that scene. The Tao court was vast, with tens of thousands of branches, and the Enlightenment Convention was similar to the imperial examination in the human world, an opportunity for disciples to change their fate. Even those disciples with mediocre spiritual root qualification harbored hope, as the Tao court valued comprehension of the great Tao more. Only after the end of the Enlightenment Convention did Xiao Lan awaken. Guan accompanied her off the platform, and they were soon met by Sage Su and other mentors. "Come, let me take you to meet the great powers of our sect. Your comprehension has been recognized by the higher-ups, my disciple. You are truly going to become a prodigy of the Tao court." Sage Su grasped Xiao Lan's hand, excitedly said. Xiao Lan hesitated and looked towards Guan, who winked at her and said, "Go on. It's not a goodbye. When you return, we'll have a good chat." Upon hearing this, Xiao Lan's face bloomed into a smile, and she nodded immediately. Sage Su pulled Xiao Lan and flew away quickly. Other great cultivators began to attend to their own disciples, and seeing that they had nothing to discuss with him, Guan turned and left. "Guan, right? You better be prepared. Xiao Lan will soon soar to great heights and become an existence that both you and even we will look up to," said a middle-aged Taoist, watching Gu An's departing figure, and suddenly spoke. Guan did not stop walking. His departing silhouette made the other great cultivators shake their heads. Thinking he was being stubborn, little did they know how fragile emotions are in the face of time and talent. The journey of immortal cultivation is about mastering the Tao heart and dominating instincts. When cultivators overcome their emotions and desires, they naturally make the most beneficial and rational decisions for themselves. Guan did not mind the discussions of the wandering immortals. His thoughts were on Long Tongue. Long Tongue was about to face trouble, and he was ready to lend a hand. Regardless, he was Long Zhan, and Long Tongue could be considered his kin. Furthermore, Long Tongue's presence in the Tao court was arranged by Li Xiandao. If something went wrong, and the Li family and the Long family turned against each other, it wouldn't be a pretty sight. Guan did not want to test personal relationships. He was not walking quickly, as if strolling since combat was not allowed within Tao City. Long Tongue had performed well over the years, and Guan was quite satisfied with him. If there was any flaw to point out, it was that he was too righteous, not selfish enough. Such a character was rare in the Long family, and Guan intended not only to save him, but also to give him a push. Meanwhile, along another street, Long Tongue and a man in blue walked shoulder to shoulder. "You are really impressive." The steel in front of you lit up, causing an uproar from the crowd below, and many were inquiring about your origins. The man in blue was sent by Li Xiandao to accompany Long Tongue in his cultivation. After experiencing the prosperity of the Tao court, he thought the Taizong continent was quite primitive, so he acted very prudently. Over the years, seeing Long Tongue suppress various geniuses, even those of Tao court were no match for him, which delighted him immensely. Especially his performance at the Enlightenment Convention. Long Tongue's comprehension achieved the highest score, with only a handful of people comparable to him. Compared to the man in blue's excitement, Long Tongue was quite calm. He was still pondering the insights he gained from enlightenment. He felt he needed to find a path genuinely suitable for himself, as his current Taoist techniques were too mixed, leaving him somewhat confused. The two made their way towards the city gate, and even though Long Tongue was not responsive, the man in blue kept talking nonstop, envisioning Long Tongue's future in 10,000 years, believing Long Tongue would surpass Yang Jian to become the premier warrior of the Tai Song imperial dynasty. By the time they reached the city gate, Long Tongue was still contemplating enlightenment. Suddenly, a figure blocked their path. "Do you need something?" the man in blue asked with a frown. Long Tongue's train of thought was interrupted, and he instinctively frowned. Looking up about to speak, his pupils suddenly dilated, and he froze, his body even trembling slightly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 588. The support of Dao Court. Long Tongue looked at Guan before him, feeling a sense of unreality. He still remembered the day when the ancestor had raised his hand to suppress the heaven-supporting ancestor on the heaven-repairing platform, an image that was vivid in his mind to this day. Even though he had seen many strong figures with great powers, he could never forget the ancestor. Moreover, the Dharma aspect summoned by Long Qing that day made him feel a strong resemblance to the ancestor. Even though his father hadn't said much, he had always harbored such a guess in his heart. Guan looked at the excited Long Tongue and smiled as he asked, "Not in a hurry to go back? Shall we find a place to sit?" Once Long Tongue left the city, he would quickly be surrounded by troubles. Long Tongue hurriedly responded, "No, no rush at all." He was at a loss, not knowing how to face the ancestor. The man in the blue robe was surprised. It was the first time he had seen Long Tongue lose his composure like this, and he dared not underestimate Guan, simply bowing silently. Then, the three of them walked toward Dao City. There were plenty of places inside the city where they could sit and chat. Eventually, they found an inn, and the three sat down by a window on the 4th floor. After Long Tongue ordered some wine and dishes, he looked expectantly toward Guan. The ancestor had appeared at the Dao court. It couldn't be just to find him, could it? Even if it wasn't, now that the ancestor had shown himself, he must have something to ask of him. Source: web novel. Com. Updated on Omicron New Omicron. He was self-aware and knew he could not help the ancestor much, but he felt that perhaps his comprehension had attracted the ancestor's attention. Guan began to make small talk with Long Tongue, asking about his experiences over the years, to which Long Tongue faithfully responded one by one. Long Tongue's attitude made the man in the blue robe even more curious about Guan, and when he found an opportunity, he couldn't help but ask, "Senior, what is your relationship with Long Tongue?" Guan smiled and said, "He is my descendant." Upon hearing this, the man in the blue robe suddenly realized, wondering to himself, wasn't the sect leader of the Supreme sect the most powerful in the Long family? The sect leader was Long Tongue's father. Could there be an even more powerful ancestor? Long Tongue widened his eyes, extremely excited. Indeed, the ancestor was his ancestor. The fact that the ancestor would acknowledge their relationship excited Long Tongue tremendously, giving him a feeling as if he were dreaming. Guan turned to the man in the blue robe and smiled. "Let's keep our meeting today a secret, and don't mention it to His Majesty either." "You know His Majesty?" the man in the blue robe asked in surprise. Guan picked up his cup and said, "I've known him for over 20,000 years. My name is Guan. You might not have heard of me." "Guan what? You're Guan." The man in the blue robe suddenly stood up, becoming even more excited than Long Tongue. And just after asking, he regretted it and instinctively looked around. He saw that other cultivators in the inn did not care about their conversation, which made him sigh with relief. He sat down again and respectfully raised his hand to Guan, his hands trembling. Guan smiled and said, "No need for such courtesy. I pay no mind to the worldly rituals of the human world. Sword Venerable, rest assured, I will not speak of it." The excited man in the blue robe said. His name was Liu, a descendant of the royal family. Although he was not from Li Zondo's direct line, he was highly regarded by Li Xiandao, so he was aware of the past between Li Xiandao and supporting Dao Sword Venerable. Long Tongue also reassured him, his eyes never daring to leave Guan, afraid that Guan might suddenly disappear. Guan finished his cup in one gulp and continued, "Since meeting is fate, I shall enlighten you both a little." Before Long Tongue and Li Yu could speak, Guan set down his cup, and a powerful Dao intent instantly enveloped the two, plunging them into a trance. Guan's gaze moved toward the window, looking out over Dao City, where the sky was vast and the city splendidly majestic. It had to be said, the Dao court was indeed extraordinary, having built such a foundation in 20,000 years that was stronger than the ancient Holy Court. For a very long time to come, the Dao court would play a crucial role. Only when Li arose to become the strongest in the celestial spirit great world would the Dao court become a thing of the past. But that was a very distant future. Time swiftly passed. After an indeterminate amount of time, as if waking from a dream, Long Ting awoke to see Li Yu still sitting beside him in a daze, and the inn's server was standing at the table, looking at them nervously. Coming back to his senses, Long Tongue hurriedly said, "We're fine, you can go down." The innkeeper, although dubious, hurriedly caught the bag of spirit stones that Long Tongue tossed out and bowed as he took his leave. Long Tongue looked out the window, his divine sense probing, but unable to find Guan. However, a segment of inherited memory popped into his mind. CTH novel, IR. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Celestial Dragon Reincarnation Dharma Aspect. Long Tang's eyes flickered with excitement, filled with gratitude towards Guan. Unlike his father's Celestial Dragon Dharma Aspect, the Celestial Dragon Reincarnation Dharma Aspect summoned his reincarnation body, and what's more, without any cost. This gave him a clear direction for his future cultivation. The path of reincarnation, to wage wars across hundreds, thousands of lifetimes, and to condense the strongest Dharma aspect. Thinking of the Dragon Battle Dharma aspect that his father had summoned, Long Tongue's heart burned with eagerness. At this moment, Li Yu also regained consciousness. After a brief moment of astonishment, he excitedly looked at Long Tongue and said, "Long Tongue, I've received the inheritance of the sword Venerable, named the Seven Gods' Golden Body. Have you heard of this technique?" Long Tongue shook his head. Since it was granted by our ancestor, it must be a remarkable inheritance. What I received was another kind of divine skill. Yes, this Seven Gods' Golden Body is indeed domineering. I feel that if I perfect it, I could be qualified to contend with the heaven's proud sons. Li Yu said, holding back his joy as he grabbed some wine to calm his emotions. Long Tongue did not respond further, and instead turned his gaze back to the window. He suddenly grew curious. Why had the ancestor appeared within the Dao court? Could it be the ancestor was behind the Dao court? The rapid rise of the Dao court had always been a puzzling matter for all beings in the celestial spirit great world. If it was the ancestor, that would make sense. Li Yu continued discussing the power of the Seven Gods' Golden Body, talking incessantly, as usual, even without Long Tongue responding. Elsewhere, Guan had already met Xiaolan, and they were heading back to the cave mansion together. On the way back, Xiaolan spoke of the Ting Master's appreciation for her. She would soon be relocating her cave mansion, and she said she would take Guan with her wherever she went, never to be parted from him. The Dao court allowed the heaven's proud sons to bring people into the main veins, as long as the numbers were few. Guan had no objections to Xiaolan's arrangements. He listened intently to her expressing her excitement. Months passed swiftly by. One day, Guan and Xiaolan, led by a disciple of the main vein, arrived at the new cave mansion. After the disciple of the main vein left, Xiaolan looked at the little world before her, thrilled. This little world was quite vast, spanning 100,000 miles, brimming with spiritual energy, all belonging to Xiaolan alone. Later, Guan suddenly called out. After hearing him, Xiaolan turned around reflexively, only for a sword to fly towards her, which she caught instinctively. She looked down and realized it was the white spirit sword that Guan always carried with him. "This sword is a congratulatory gift from me. congratulating you on becoming a true disciple of the Tao Court, Guan said with a smile, looking at Xiaolon. Xiaolon, holding the white spirit sword joyfully, curiously asked, I've always wanted to ask you, what is the origin of the Cyan Hong sword and white spirit sword, and why do you always carry them? Guan replied, these two swords were given to me by the most important person in my life. She has passed away, and my giving them to you now signifies that you are the most important person to me at present. Upon hearing this, Xiaolon felt as sweet as honey in her heart, and she immediately rushed towards Guan, embracing him. Guan shook his head helplessly. How could this girl be more clingy than in her previous life? Always wanting to hug him, touch him. This sword contains extraordinary power. Don't tell anyone about it, Guan said softly, caressing Xiaolan's head. The white spirit sword was no longer ordinary. Guan had infused a newly forged Tao treasure into it, merging the two. The white spirit sword was now a Tao treasure, containing power enough to overturn the 9 heavens of the immortal Tao. The true meaning of the great Tao within it could aid Xiaolon in her cultivation. Nestled in Guan's arms, Xiaolon nodded. She never doubted Guan, burying her face in his chest. She felt truly blessed. Her immortal path was smooth, and the person she loved most was always by her side. She resolved to cultivate diligently, to protect everything she had. All right, let's start managing this little world, Guan said, patting Xiaolan's back lightly with a laugh. Reluctant to let go, Xiaolon released her grip on him and took Guan's hand, walking forward as she shared her ideas about how she wanted this little world to look. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 589. Breakthrough to Heaven-Opening Daluo Immortal Realm Perfection. The road to immortal cultivation was long and fraught with obstacles. The ancients said, an immortal dreams for 3,000 years. This saying was validated in today's celestial spirit great world. After stepping into the nirvana realm, the timescale of cultivators began to lengthen. 100 years as a day, 1,000 years as a dream. For those on the path of immortal Tao, the higher their talent, the faster time passed. After becoming a disciple of the main vein of the Tao Court, Xiaolon entered a prolonged period of seclusion. At first, she worried about Guan, fearing that he would pass away during her seclusion. Fortunately, although Guan encountered many setbacks, he always managed to break through. Once Guan successfully achieved nirvana, she completely set her mind at ease and focused on her cultivation. Tens of thousands of years passed in the blink of an eye, and although the human world underwent tremendous changes like the transformation of the sea into mulberry fields, there were not many changes in the immortal cultivation realm. That year, Xiaolon encountered a breakthrough opportunity. Under the protection of the great cultivators of the main vein, she successfully stepped into the wandering immortal realm, while Guan watched from a distance. He marveled at the uniqueness of the new era. Living for 10,000 years to reach wandering immortal realm was rare in the previous era, but in this new one, such geniuses were not few. Blood Prison Great Saint and an Exine even reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm one after another. Tao treasures greatly aided their cultivation, added with the abundant spiritual energy of the Taoist field of the beginningless, containing the true meaning of the great Tao. Their cultivation speed was ever increasing, especially an Exine, who seemed to be transforming into an Hao. Though Guan felt that he contributed significantly to his disciples' progress, thinking of the past, he still had many reflections. I should also break through a minor realm. Guan watched Xiaolon consolidating her cultivation level at the horizon and made up his mind. Source: web novel. Updated on Omicron New. He originally wanted to rely on his enlightenment to break through. However, for a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, breaking through a minor realm required much more time than he could imagine. Having thought that, Guan directly switched identities, his original body leaping out of the little world. Among the cultivators protecting Shaolin, the strongest had reached the Tao Void profound immortal realm. This person did not detect any abnormalities and remained focused on Shaolin. Gu An's original body arrived at a forest in the human world where he directly performed a lifespan breakthrough. 9 options appeared before him again. Most of the locations were ones he recognized. Gu An's gaze fell on Desperate Celestial Tomb. The sins within the Desperate Celestial Tomb had a mysterious cause and effect with him. He originally thought he could learn about it through lifespan reincarnation, but he did not. Let's take another look. Now that his realm was higher, maybe he could understand. Guin immediately chose to teleport to the Desperate Celestial Tomb, consuming 100 billion years of lifespan in the process. After a while, Guin opened his eyes and immediately activated the lifespan barrier. What entered his sight was the desolate scene of the Desperate Celestial Tomb, with colossal and ruined structures stretching all the way to the ends of heaven and earth. The grand palace where the Sin resided was far from him, but he could easily see the situation of that palace. The immense door, still slightly ajar, stretched as dark as if leading to the gates of hell. Guin didn't keep staring at that palace. He pulled up the attribute panel. S.E.A. The Novel Fire. Net ** website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Name, Guin, lifespan, 34, 362/487, 609, 219, 005. Physique, primordial reincarnation, undying body. Cultivation level, late stage of heaven opening Daluo immortal realm. He directly invested lifespan into his cultivation level in increments of 100 billion years each time. Prompt after prompt appeared, with 480 billion years of lifespan at his disposal. Guin barely heeded the failure notifications. Eventually, after spending 110 billion years of lifespan, he successfully reached the perfection of heaven-opening Daluo immortal realm. Next would be observing the consumption of a lifespan barrier. Vast spiritual energy surged from the ground. Almost instantly, Guin was enveloped by golden illumination of the great Tao. The Tao spiritual energy of the entire Desperate Celestial Tomb showed anomalies, and even the Tao rules trembled. Now that he was a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, the disturbances he caused far exceeded those of before, and more ancient buildings began to tremble. The ground heaved with sand, moving as if it had sentience, appearing like a yellow cloth rising. Since it was a breakthrough in a minor realm, Guin didn't need to be completely focused on the breakthrough. He divided his attention towards the grand palace where the Sin resided. Time ticked by. In half an hour, Guin would succeed in his breakthrough. Yet halfway through, the Sin still did not appear. Could something have gone wrong? Guin thought silently. Even when he succeeded in his breakthrough, the Sin never emerged from that grand palace. The lifespan barrier consumed nearly 500 billion years of lifespan, which stung quite a bit for Guin. The higher the realm, the greater the lifespan barrier's consumption, and for safety, he activated the lifespan barrier every time he broke through. The reason for this was quite simple. Guin enjoyed observing others, and he spied on existences of lower realms without being detected. So naturally, there must be existences stronger than him who also enjoyed spying on those weaker than themselves. The purpose of the lifespan barrier was to prevent him from being observed while gaining strength. This was crucial. Guin could reach this point today. Those enemies he had defeated found it incredible, and the lifespan barrier played a critical role in this. Guin felt disappointed that he hadn't seen Zui. Although the Desperate Celestial Tomb was constantly showing signs of disturbance, there seemed to be no signs of living beings, not even ghosts or evil spirits. Once Gu An's cultivation level had stabilized, he stood up. Before leaving, he covered the entire Desperate Celestial Tomb with his divine sense. Since it was a tomb, something must have been buried here. The grand palace where Zay resided wasn't the most mysterious. At the center of the world, Guin spotted a deep hole over 1,000 miles in diameter, bottomless and swirling with a special Tao spiritual qi. This was the first time Guin who had begun to understand different Tao, had encountered such Tao spiritual qi. It was eerie, ominous, and sent shivers down one's spine. Even Gu En, who had reached the perfection of the heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal realm, had an intuition not to come into contact with this Tao. He was about to teleport back when he suddenly sensed movement. Something in the deep hole was rushing towards the surface. As it ascended, the invisible and intangible Tao spiritual qi surged like erupting core fire, unstoppable. The ground began to tremble violently. Guin wasn't panicking. He stood within the lifespan barrier, hidden from detection, but he's still prepared to teleport away immediately if needed. With a bang, sand flew upwards from the ground violently. The clouds at the horizon dispersed, and an object burst out of the deep hole, aiming to break through the sky. However, when it reached a certain height, it was stopped by an invisible barrier. Narrowing his eyes, Guin saw that it was a forefinger, dark red throughout, with a tip sharp as a knife, 1,000 feet long, emanating a terrifying aura. The might displayed by this forefinger was not inferior to the early stage of the Tai Ching Golden Immortal Realm, but the Tao spiritual qi surrounding it was even more dreadful. After being halted, the forefinger fell down, eventually crashing into a ruined temple and raising a cloud of dust tens of thousands of feet high. Guin used the lifespan detection on this finger, but found nothing indicating that it wasn't a living being. He turned his head in another direction. A faint aura emitted from the grand palace where Zue resided. Soon, a figure peeked through the door crack. Zue. He still appeared to be just over 10 years old, unchanged from the last time Guin had seen him. Zue, Nirvana Realm 0/9999/9999. His age was still 0, his lifespan and maximum lifespan unchanged. Guin grew more curious. What exactly was this state? Under his gaze, Zue took a deep breath, as if bracing himself, and then ran towards the direction where the 1,000-foot forefinger had fallen. The little guy was fast, covering 100 miles in one step, as if blinking across space. Before long, he reached near the 1,000-foot forefinger, slowed his steps, and cautiously approached. When he stood before the 1,000-foot forefinger, it was as if facing a giant mountain. He reached out to touch the 1,000-foot forefinger. Guin frowned and subconsciously looked down at his own right forefinger. He actually felt his forefinger being touched. With his high cultivation level, he couldn't be mistaken. Could this 1,000-foot forefinger be his own? As Zue touched the 1,000-foot forefinger, his eyes welled up, and he murmured something in a language not of the celestial spirit great world. As his tears fell on the 1,000-foot forefinger, the bizarre Tao spiritual qi on the finger surged towards him, seemingly wishing to transform him into another kind of creature. Guin's eyebrows furrowed. He felt a strong sense of cause and effect. That was not his finger. It belonged to an old acquaintance, not from his past life, but from his reincarnation body. It was Fairy Yao Xian, who he had met in his previous lifespan reincarnation. Fairy Yao Xian, in her attempt to save his reincarnation body, the Emperor of Eternal Life, had fallen into the Tao, condemned to eternal oblivion, her cause and effect hard to trace. If it weren't for the Emperor of Eternal Life using the power of the great cause and effect steel, it would have been impossible to capture even a sliver of Fairy Yao Xian's cause and effect. Through Shun Jun, the Emperor of Eternal Life sent Fairy Yao Xian's cause and effect to Guin, the real persona, which established a causal relationship between Fairy Yao Xian and Guin. This process, too complex to be captured by the naked eye, was nonetheless real. As the relationship between Guin and Shun Jun deepened, his sense of cause and effect connected to Fairy Yao Xian also strengthened. He became increasingly certain that the 1,000-foot forefinger was indeed Fairy Yao Xian's. If so, what was the relationship between Zue and Fairy Yao Xian? Could it be? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report, so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 590, The Origin of the White Spirit Sword Gu, and recalled the life of the Emperor of Eternal Life, and indeed, he had a relationship with Fairy Yaoxian. With their cultivation levels, whether they conceived a child depended on their will. He felt that the child was likely the Emperor of Eternal Lives, and that was why he felt some sort of cause and effect relationship with the child. As his cultivation level broke through, this feeling grew even stronger. He continued to watch the child, whose hands were pressed against the 1,000-zhang index finger, weeping softly. The child didn't seem to feel some force entering his body. He was only indulging in venting his emotions. Guan was curious in his heart whether a lifespan breakthrough could teleport someone out. Just as this thought arose, he received an answer. No. This answer inexplicably appeared in his mind, probably a response from the lifespan breakthrough. With the answer, he dared not act rashly. The desperate celestial tomb was not simple. This place was like a sealed land, unable to be exited directly. As time passed, the child stopped crying. He leaned against the finger wall, slowly closed his eyes, and seemed to fall into a deep sleep. Guan began to deduce the child's destiny, but just as before, he couldn't calculate anything. He again looked toward the 1,000-zhang index finger and continued to deduce. Source, web novel. Updated on Enrich. Guan suddenly made a sound of surprise, and his expression turned grave. This 1,000-zhang index finger would later break out of the desperate celestial tomb and descend onto the great thousand world. It would bring a great catastrophe to all heavens and myriad realms. Guan saw countless beings fall into evil, and he saw a dark force swallowing up pieces of the great thousand world. He stopped deducing, his brow deeply furrowed. This index finger belonged to Fairy Yaoxian. Relying on it, Guan might be able to find Fairy Yaoxian in the future. But it would bring irreparable disaster to countless beings, meaning Guan could not take it out. After much thought, Guan decided to leave the 1,000-zhang index finger and the child be for the time being. To prevent himself from wavering, Guan chose to teleport back. This teleportation used another 10 billion years of his lifespan. Now, however, he had reached the perfection of the heaven-opening Daluo Immortal realm, and just crossing a minor realm had greatly advanced his strength. When he returned to the celestial spirit great world and opened his eyes, the environment around him hadn't changed, but he felt that the celestial spirit great world had weakened. It was so fragile that a single thought from him could shatter this part of the great thousand world. He walked in a direction, ready to enjoy nature and wait for Xiaolan to fully stabilize her cultivation level before returning. The path of cultivation was like a river, with countless cultivators sailing on it. Some people sailed faster, some overtook others, and some capsized, plunging to the riverbed. Guan looked down at the myriad beings of the celestial spirit great world, contemplating the various states of life, a process that helped him understand the essence of the world. The birth of heaven and earth was not difficult for him, but the operation of the rules of heaven and earth contained a deeper level of Tao intent. The heavens and earths were innumerable, yet their operational rules were mostly similar. In the midst of it, perhaps there was an even more transcendent power supporting everything. Guan thought of the mysterious great Tao aura on the 1,000-zhang index finger. What kind of great Tao was it, and why was it so peculiar? After breaking through to the wandering immortal realm, Xiaolan was extremely excited and dragged Gu in to visit Sage, Su, and their fellow disciples. Ia, the Novel Fire, net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Sage Su and the other traveling immortal instructors had long known that this day would come, but they didn't expect it so soon. When Xiaolan was in the Qi cultivation realm, Sage Su was already in the wandering immortal realm. Yet when Xiaolan reached the wandering immortal realm, Sage Su was still in the wandering immortal realm. Even if the mentor-disciple relationship was as good as it got, Sage Su still felt a bit mixed inside, yet she hid her emotions very well. Standing on the side as a bystander, Guan watched these people congratulating Xiaolan, thinking with a sigh how life was unfair, and he found it quite amusing. Afterward, Xiaolon wished to return to Xiao Manor for a visit, and Sage Su had no objections. With the cultivation level Xiaolon now possessed, she was capable of standing on her own. After Sage Su gave her several reminders, she watched Xiaolon and her companion leave. A middle-aged female cultivator remarked with emotion, "Even though she has become a loose immortal, she still treats that kid Guan like a treasure. I really don't know what kind of enchanting potion Guan fed her." Before Xiaolon entered the loose immortal stage, they all worried that Guan would be a drag on her. Now, they only marveled at Xiaolan's deep affection for Guan. Such emotions were rare indeed. If they could keep this up, it would indeed be a beautiful tale. On the way back, it was still Xiaolon riding the clouds, her mood somewhat uneasy. The excitement brought on by her breakthrough was replaced by the nervous emotion of returning home. Thousands of years had passed, and her parents had long since departed this life. She already knew this, and she feared that Xiao Manor might no longer exist, that the descendants of the Xiao family might have forgotten her. "Don't worry, there won't be any issues. It's said that prodigies have their own destiny. This force, invisible and intangible, can protect those around them," Guan consoled. Xiaolon looked at Guan and asked curiously, "Brother Gu, don't you have any regrets?" From childhood, Guan had always been there for her. She had never seen him sad or disheartened, not even angry. He always remained gentle, cheerful. Not a hint of negative emotion could be seen on him. Thinking about it now, Guan seemed unrealistically perfect. The curiosity in Xiaolan's eyes grew even thicker, as if she wanted to see right through Gu. "And of course, I have regrets. Everything you've experienced, I have already been through. Once you've been through a lot and learn to let go, you won't feel as upset," Guan replied. This puzzled Xiaolon even more, and she asked, "You're only 20 years older than me. How can you speak as if you were thousands of years older than me?" Guan laughed and said, "In dreams, I've experienced more than you." "Really? Laner, have you ever thought about your goal in immortal cultivation?" "I actually have. Let's hear it. I want to be the master of the Dao Court," Xiaolon said with a proud smile, and seeing her smile, Guan felt a bit dazed. Yilon always loved to chase after power. It seemed some things remained unchanged by the cycles of reincarnation. Chasing power wasn't a bad thing. People should always have goals in life. "I hope to see you succeed in my lifetime," Guan sincerely said, making Xiaolon feel the pressure. Yes, her future was bright, but the same couldn't be said for Gu, and Xiaolon feared that Guan would be saddened, so she started to change the subject. The prodigies of the primordial era were far stronger than those of the previous era, and the path to fame was naturally tougher. Xiaolan's reputation had already spread within the Dao court, but in the eyes of the world, she was still unknown. She prepared to venture out for trials, to compete for treasures, to punish the wicked and eliminate evil, just like the immortals in the stories. However, she was somewhat worried about Gu and said she could go with peace of mind and that he would wait for her in the cave mansion, which relieved her considerably. Trials for treasures inevitably meant battle. She couldn't guarantee Gu's safety, but she also feared he might overthink it, leaving her hesitant. "By the way, Brother Gu, what is the origin of this white spirit sword?" Xiaolon asked out of curiosity. She had already discovered there was something unique about the white spirit sword. "The person who gave me this sword said it was from an immortal. I didn't believe it until I followed you on the path of cultivation. Its origins are for you to discover." "I'm not capable of that," Guan answered. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 591. With sentiment and without sentiment, thousands of years had passed, and Xiao Manor indeed had changed beyond recognition, now known as Xiao City, the strongest cultivation family in the region. Despite their eminent status, the descendants of the Xiao family always remembered Xiaolon, and her portrait still stood in the ancestral hall for posterity to worship. Xiaolan looked at the excited descendants of the Xiao family and thought of her brothers and sisters. The newly initiated wandering Immortal couldn't help but become teary-eyed. Her cultivation level was high, and she had lived longer than the members of the Xiao family. But in reality, she had faced too few hardships and spent the majority of her life in seclusion, so she still had the temperament of a young girl. Guan watched Xiaolan being surrounded by her descendants, his face filled with a smile. The Yilan of his past life had once dreamed of such a scene. Unfortunately, she had no living family, let alone descendants. Xiaolan stayed in Xiao City for a whole month, and all the citizens knew that the old ancestor of the Xiao family had returned. Even cultivators from other cities and sects came to visit. During that month, although Guan could see Xiaolan every day, they did not spend as much time together as in the past. Not because Xiaolan deliberately neglected him, but because the Xiao family members were too enthusiastic. When they left Xiao City, Xiaolan stood on cloud mists, raised her arms, and laughed loudly. From now on, I have a new goal, not only to be the master of the Dao Court, but also to help the Xiao family become an eternally thriving cultivation family. Her whole being was full of fighting spirit, and an aura unique to great talents appeared on her. As for Xiao Lan's lofty ambition, Guan thought it was good, as it was a common human sentiment, just like how he would take care of the supreme sect. Guan also knew his own problems, always saying he would not interfere, yet he couldn't help but take action. Long Tongue was the best example. No matter how high the cultivation level of a Taoist, they would always look after those close to them. Source: web novel. Updated on Omicron now. Guan suddenly thought of a question. Is it better for immortal gods to be affectionate or indifferent? Are heavenly Tao and great Tao affectionate? Guan fell into deep thought, while Xiaolan, unaware of what he was thinking, continued to express her lofty ambitions, as if shouting them could make heaven and earth witness her determination. In the Taizong imperial dynasty, inside the great hall of the palace, thousands of civil and military officials stood on both sides, watching a man dressed in gorgeous silver armor approach. This man was Long Tongue, wearing thick silver armor, like a silver dragon wrapped around his body, his helmet adorned with 2 phoenix wings, and a white cape fluttering as if it had a life of its own. At the front of the steps, Li Xiandao, dressed in emperor's robes, looked at Long Tongue, his face full of prideful smiles. Yang Jian also stood in the hall, dressed in official robes, not like a military leader, and he sized up Long Tongue, nodding slightly. Li Yu, who had accompanied Long Tongue to the Dao court previously, was also present, his expression excited, even waving to Long Tongue. Long Tongue remained calm, walked up to the steps, knelt down, and raised his hand to salute Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao smiled and said, "Rise, your battle achievements have satisfied me." Seeing Long Tongue stand up, an elderly official took out a scroll and began to read. Admiral Long Tongue, who swept through the drowning sea demon domain, beheaded the dark demon emperor, shook the 7 seas, enhanced the holy might of Taizong, is hereby bestowed the title of Admiral of Celestial Praise, ranked 1st grade, to enjoy Taizong's destiny forever, and his divine statue to be listed in the Divine General's Mansion. His voice was full of vigor, echoing in the great hall, stirring discussions among the officials. Many were incredulous. They knew the emperor would reward Long Tongue generously, but no one expected such treatment for Long Tongue. 1st grade, nearly second to none. The position of admiral, previously only achieved by Yang Jian. Li Xiandao was very pleased with the official's amazement. He aimed to elevate Long Tongue to the pinnacle, letting everyone in the world know Long Tongue's name. Regardless of jealousy or disdain, Long Tongue was destined to soar. Li Xiandao raised his right hand, and a golden order shaped like a sword descended from the heavens, landing in front of Long Tongue. From now on, you may use this order to command any troops, viewing this order as seeing me personally, and may execute first and report afterwards. Li Zondo's voice echoed like a thunderclap, causing an uproar in the great hall, and even Yang Jian was taken by surprise. Li Yu was stunned. having not expected the emperor to go to such lengths. However, upon considering the relationship between Long Tongue and Guan, he found it reasonable. Although the Taizong imperial dynasty was strong, it was far from contending for supremacy over the world, and only with the support of supporting Dao Sword Venerable could there be hope. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Long Tongue received the order unflinchingly, his words resounding firmly. As he accepted the order, the courtiers all felt that a great change was about to come to the Taizong imperial dynasty, as not only had the emperor favored Long Tongue over the years, but had also promoted other members of the Long family. With Long Tongue being appointed as Admiral of Celestial Praise, the Long family had truly risen to the top echelon of the Taizong imperial dynasty, compelling even those with a deeper family heritage to take the Long family seriously. Hiss! A fierce wind swept into the great hall, causing everyone's complexion to drastically change. Long Tongue turned around, squinting his eyes. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him and pushed forward with a palm. It was Yang Jian. As Yang Jian swung his palm, a tremendous mana erupted, seeming to strike an invisible existence, dispersing into a mist of energy. "Slaughter my demon soldiers and still wish to boast? Ridiculous." A cold sneer sounded, and Yang Jian's complexion abruptly changed as a powerful demonic power dispersed his mana, forcing him to retreat. As he retreated, he did not bump into Long Tongue. Instead, he fixed his gaze, but Long Tongue's figure had already disappeared. Li Xiandao on the dragon throne was also compelled to gather his mana, but was still shocked into standing up. Ministers to either side were knocked to the ground, their cries of agony resounding. "Emperor Taizong, consider this a warning today. Your Admiral of Celestial Praise must die, and I will let my subordinates feast on his flesh." That cold sneer echoed again. The demonic wind in the hall ceased, and Yang Jian also disappeared from the hall, pursuing the source. Li Xiandao stood in front of the dragon throne, his brow furrowed, but he did not panic, his eyes mixed with a hint of unusual color. Long Tongue was bound by an unshakable demonic power, losing his ability to resist. He could not even open his eyes, feeling the world spinning and his divine soul inverting. This sensation lasted a long time until he was finally thrown to the ground. As the demonic power dissipated, he opened his eyes and found himself lying in a dim underground plaza, which was vast, and in front, there was an altar over 1,000 zhang in diameter with a majestic stone statue standing behind it. A supremely fierce demon whose mere statue emitted an immense oppressive force. Long Tongue turned to look and saw a red cord binding his battle armor, sealing his mana, preventing him from standing up. A figure appeared out of nowhere in front of him, a hawk-headed demon wearing a loose Taoist robe and as tall as a small mountain. With his back to Long Tongue, the demon faced the statue and said, "Master, I really can't bear it. I can endure the excesses of the Taizong imperial dynasty, but this guy slaughtered my demon soldiers. I must tear him apart personally." The novel Ire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. His tone was filled with dissatisfaction. A hoarse voice followed. "What is this person's name? Is he related to that existence?" The hawk-headed demon snorted coldly. "His name is Long Tongue. How could he possibly be related to that existence? Master, you are too cautious. Supporting Dao Sword Venerable has long left the celestial spirit great world. If he were really here, it wouldn't be the Dao Court, but the supreme sect or the Taizong imperial dynasty that would unify the world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 592. God of the Great Thousand World. The voice of the eagle-headed demon echoed within the underground plaza, but the aged voice he called Master did not immediately respond. Long Tongue heard him mention supporting Dao Sword Venerable, but his expression remained unchanged, and he did not disclose his relationship with the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. The underground plaza fell into silence. The eagle-headed demon turned to look at Long Tongue lying on the ground. His right hand lifted, his palm transformed into an eagle's claw, elongated and sharp, with tips even flickering with a cold light. He looked down at Long Tongue with a cold smile on his face, unable to hide the murderous intent in his eyes. Long Tongue looked up at him, his face still calm, showing no fear. Seeing Long Tongue's composure, the eagle-headed demon's anger flared. His face became ferocious as he raised his claw towards Long Tongue. "Wait!" The ancient voice suddenly rang out, the fierce demon's stone statue exuding tendrils of demon chi, quickly coalescing into a transformed demon. This was an old man, dressed in a black robe made of animal skin, flying in the air like a ghost. His white hair, casually draped, covering most of his face, his gaze fixed on Long Tongue with furrowed brows. "He is called Long Tongue. What is his relationship with Long Qing, the sect leader of the Supreme Sect?" the old man asked. He was unable to foresee the cause and effect involving Long Tongue, which made him uneasy and filled with a strong sense of dread. Start the novel, F.I.R. at website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He felt a disaster was imminent. The eagle-headed demon turned to look at his master, frowning. Even if he is related to the sect leader of the Supreme Sect, so what? When the Outer Heaven Power attacked before, the supporting Tao Sword Venerable did not appear, and over these years, descendants of the Long family have been harmed without all their adversaries being destroyed. He knew the identity of the sect leader of the Supreme Sect, a disciple of the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. But the disciples of supporting Tao Sword Venerable were not limited to one, Yang Jian included. When Yang Jian assisted the Taizong imperial dynasty in its conquests, he too had been captured by great powers, surviving countless life and death ordeals, never witnessing supporting Tao Sword Venerable in action. There were still enemies of Yang Jian roaming free, which was why the eagle-headed demon felt his master was too cautious. He even thought that his master was terrified by the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, lacking the spirit of a free immortal. The black-robed demon flickered, appearing before Long Tongue, the eagle-headed demon turning as well. Guthan just glanced at Long Tongue's plight without paying much heed. Such occurrences weren't rare in the celestial spirit great world, where many of his old acquaintances had encountered similar situations. Once it was understood that they were connected to Guthan, their enemies often hesitated and even started infighting. Guthan was reading in the courtyard, still absorbed in the Cyan Hero travelogue. The profound celestial intent, now a wandering immortal, traveled more and more, writing a book for every location he visited. Some stories were fabricated, while others were true. Guthan greatly admired that the profound celestial intent never forgot his roots. No matter how high his realm, he still wrote stories from the past without any pretense. The profound celestial intent didn't write Cyan Hero travelogue to please Guthan. They hadn't seen each other for many years, and his writing was more for himself. Guthan's copy of Cyan Hero travelogue was purchased from the Immortal cultivation realm. He never offered any suggestions to the profound celestial intent. An Xian appeared out of thin air beside him and said, "Master, the Qinquan sect is planning to fight for an innate spiritual tree. I Ching Shan asked me to lend a hand. He said we could plant the tree near our dojo." Guthan replied casually, "If you want to get involved, then do it." He wasn't very strict with an Xian. Over the years, she had helped the Qinquan sect numerous times and was already well known. Of course, the reason Guthan tacitly approved of Nzin's involvement was that the Qinquan sect followed a righteous path. Unlike other sects that merely struggled for benefits, the Qinquan sect prioritized life, and if any creatures were threatened, they would intervene, prioritizing the preservation of life in any task. Acting chivalrously was a principle for disciples of the Qinquan sect. Nowadays, many join the Qinquan sect to become cultivating immortal heroes, not merely for longevity. Go then. I've recently discussed with the Ghost Mother about improving the woodlands outside our dojo to try and cultivate more medicinal herbs. Ideally, I want the outside world to become a holy land of the human world, and Xin said softly with a laugh. She was now in the heaven and earth-flying immortal realm, holding the Tao treasure, the six paths mirror, capable of contending against all beings in the 9 heavens of the immortal path. Guan nodded slightly, his attention still on the book, and Xin glanced at the book cover and thought to herself, the same book again, how can he never tire of it? She bowed to Guan, then exchanged a few words with Shunjun in front of the artifact refining cauldron before she left. As evening approached, Guan put down the Saiyan hero travelogue, stood up, and began to stretch his limbs. He looked at Shunjun and asked, "Fancy going out for a bit?" Shunjun turned and looked at him, puzzled. "Then who will watch the artifact refining cauldron?" Actually, it doesn't need constant monitoring. Even without anyone, the Tao treasure can successfully form, Guan answered. Shunjun's eyes widened. She almost cursed. Biting back her anger, she asked, "So, where do you want to take me?" Guan replied, "To meet the gods of the great thousand world." Gods? Shunjun's anger faded, replaced by curiosity. Source: Webn Zero Vel. Com. Updated on Nav Zero. Co. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 593. The Mischievous Fate Under the Night Sky. By the mountainside where the firelight flickered, Bai Sheng, the reincarnation of the celestial spirit god, sat cross-legged before the fire, cultivating energy to heal his wounds. He didn't notice someone watching him from the mountaintop nearby. Is he the celestial god from the great thousand world? Shunjun looked down at Bai Sheng, asking with a face full of curiosity. To her, Bai Sheng appeared quite ordinary, hardly resembling a celestial god. Although Bai Sheng had undergone nirvana, he remained an insignificant figure in the world and was now facing the greatest ordeal of his life. The most important person to him had been captured by a peerless demon and was to become the demon consort. The news had spread across the demon lands, and demon kings from all quarters were preparing to offer their congratulations. If he wished to rescue his beloved, he would be up against the entire demon race of the demon lands. His pressure was immense, and without any other option, he had to cultivate alone in the desolate mountains and wilderness. Guan, feeling Bai Sheng's inner turmoil, replied, "He is a reincarnated celestial god. Don't be fooled by his weakness. His soul is the strongest existence in the world." Shunjun wanted to ask how he compared to you, but she felt the question was unnecessary. "He seems very troubled," Shunjun said softly, staring at Bai Sheng. Guan glanced at her and inwardly nodded in approval. Her cultivation level might not be strong, but her perception power was growing as she gained enlightenment. In terms of perceiving the great Tao, Shunjun was certainly the strongest among the dojo's disciples, following a highly unconventional path in her cultivation. Guan briefly narrated the story of Bai Sheng and Su Jin and the predicament he was currently facing. Su Jin had been captured by a demon of the divine thought, true immortal realm, the most powerful being in the land. Had it not been for Su Jin's pleas, Bai Sheng would have already been killed by that demon. During the years of cultivating together, this man and demon had already become soulmates, and Su Jin had saved Bai Sheng countless times. He couldn't imagine how he would live without Su Jin in the future, especially thinking about the suffering Su Jin might endure. His heart was in agony. After hearing this, Shunjun showed an interested expression. She was no ordinary woman and wasn't moved to tears by the tale of Bai Sheng and Su Jin. She was pondering another question. Why could Su Jin bridge the gap of reincarnation and find the reincarnated celestial god? She had a vague suspicion that Guan was manipulating everything from behind the scenes. Let's go down and meet him. Guan dropped this remark and started walking down the mountain, with Shunjun following closely. Walking behind Guin, she asked, "Are you going to help him?" The idea of such a powerful celestial god enduring the suffering of reincarnation made Shunjun think of the world-shattering battle before the remaking of heaven and earth. Knowing Guin as she did, it was clear he wasn't trying to mock the celestial god. Rather, he wanted the celestial god to understand the suffering of mortal spirits and thus become a celestial immortal that all sentient beings aspired to. Since ancient times, countless legends about immortal gods had existed, yet rarely did genuine immortal gods descend to save the world. For cultivators, immortal gods represented more of an aspirational goal. Cultivators long for the immortal gods, not for the responsibilities they carry, but for the capability of immortality. Walking ahead, Guin said with a soft chuckle, "Helping him is also helping those demons." After all, Baisheng was no ordinary man. Once he awakened the will of the celestial spirit god, it would take only a thought to turn those demons to dust. Of course, if Guin aided those demons in suppressing the celestial spirit god, they wouldn't meet such an end. But why would Guin want to help them? To forcefully wed another's beloved was inherently immoral. Shunjin quickened her pace to walk alongside him, and together they approached Baisheng. With the help of Guin's mana, Baisheng didn't sense Shunjun's presence, nor hear their footsteps. It wasn't until the two of them were right in front of Baisheng that Guin coughed falsely, startling Baisheng into opening his eyes suddenly. Seeing the sudden appearance of two people in front of him, Baisheng was frightened and immediately jumped up, quickly creating distance and watching Guin and Shunjun warily. He subconsciously thought that the two were demons in disguise, capable of approaching him without his notice, which surely meant their cultivation level was higher than his. Could they be subordinates sent by the demon emperor? Baisheng drew his sword, ready to fight. Guin looked at him and laughed, asking, "Don't you remember me?" Hearing this, Baisheng hesitantly asked, "You are?" He had only known Guin for less than a year, and now, after so many springs and autumns had passed, he had long forgotten Guin, only occasionally recalling when he first witnessed the power of immortal cultivation. He would think of an old friend who died in that city. Sir, the novel F. Ire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guin, brother Bai, have you forgotten? I accompanied you to the imperial examination and even taught you swordsmanship, Guin said with a wry smile. After hearing this, Baisheng concentrated and quickly widened his eyes. He didn't immediately trust Guin, instead pinching himself, thinking he might be under the influence of a demon's illusion technique. Shunjun covered her mouth to conceal her laughter at his actions. Guin patiently explained, "We are not transformed demons. If we were as you suspect, we wouldn't bother deceiving you. We would just kill you." Baisheng thought it made sense, but he was completely unprepared for the fact that someone from his memory, long thought dead, was still alive and standing in front of him. He overlooked one detail, that Guin somehow knew what he was thinking. "Brother Gu, where did you go back then?" Baisheng asked awkwardly, the passage of time having erased his recollection of the feeling of their companionship. Guin sat in front of the fire and gestured for Baisheng to come back. Shunjun sat next to Gu and with poise, appearing like an immortal goddess from heaven, her knees pointing towards Guin, clearly positioning him as the principal figure. Baisheng took a deep breath, returned to the fire. He was at his wit's end, and if he could not save Su Jin, life would be meaningless. His eyes became resolute, and he resumed his seat from before. "Talking about me is pointless. Do you want to save Su Jin?" asked Guin, picking up a stick and poking at the fire as he spoke. Baisheng's eyes lit up, asking, "Do you have a way? As long as you can help me save her, I'm willing to pay any price." Guin looked at him, his gaze sharpening. "What if it meant your death?" "I'm willing," Baisheng answered without hesitation. Guin continued, "If you die, she might marry someone else. How would that be any different from now? That demon doesn't want to kill her." Baisheng's complexion changed slightly, but he still said through gritted teeth, "It's different. I want her to be able to pursue the happiness she desires, not be coerced. As long as you can save her, I'm ready to die at any time. This scene reminded Gu and of when the boss had saved number 5 all those years ago. Back then, as now, Su Jin had given hope to the boss, but at the cost of his life. Destiny really had a way of playing tricks on people. Guan looked down at the fire, as if contemplating whether or not to save Su Jin. Bai Sheng pressed. That demon emperor is a divine thought, true immortal from the 8th heaven of immortal Tao. Do you know of a being stronger than him? He noticed his question made the woman beside Guan laugh again, the corners of her mouth lifting uncontrollably as though she were mocking him. Guan leisurely said, "Don't rush. Let me tell you a story." Bai Sheng's heart was burning with urgency, hardly in the mood for stories. But before he could refuse, Guan began to speak. In outer heaven, far in the depths of the universe, there is a gate known as the World Gate, below which resides a deity called the Celestial Spirit God. Outer heaven. God. Bai Sheng was suddenly captivated and listened intently to Gu An's continuing tale. Shen Jun was also listening intently, even beginning to imagine such a scene. A towering gate standing in the cosmos, beneath it a deity. Images began forming in her mind. She even saw other scenes. Source: Web0vel.com. Updated on Nav 0. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report, so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 594. The price of becoming a god. The night was like water, the fires on the hillside illuminating a 30-foot radius. Bai Sheng listened to Gu and telling the story of the celestial spirit god, his heart longing, his face full of disbelief. There were such beings beyond the heavens. The resolute, almost invincible celestial spirit god filled Bai Sheng with admiration. Even the strongest gods have desires, said Guan with a sigh. For the sake of the ultimate treasure, he decided to destroy the great thousand world, and for that he paid a painful price, cast into reincarnation by a greater power, to undergo the suffering of mortal spirits. Listening to this, Bai Sheng's thoughts churned dramatically. He couldn't help but ask, "So, you know who the celestial spirit god reincarnated into? Can you have him help me?" In his eyes, the 9 heavens of the immortal path was the pinnacle of immortal cultivation. The great demon who had reached the 8th heaven was already unparalleled, so surely the celestial spirit god must be at the 9th heaven cultivation level. Why would Guan bring up the celestial spirit god for no reason? He must have a way to find the celestial spirit god. Faced with Bai Sheng's eager gaze, Guan replied, "I do indeed know where he is, and if he takes action, he will surely be able to deal with that demon emperor. But what? But celestial gods are only bound by the heavenly Tao. No one knows what he thinks. Reviving him might bring catastrophe to the entire world." Hearing this, Bai Sheng fell silent. He felt that Su Jin was most important, but to gamble the freedom of all living beings on Su Jin's freedom was far too selfish. Search * the novel, F. Ire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He admitted he was no great philanthropist. He could be selfish, but he could not hurt innocent people. Shen Jun watched Bai Sheng caught in his dilemma, finding it amusing, wondering whether Bai Sheng's feelings for Su Jin would change after he had restored the will of the celestial spirit god. Bai Sheng gritted his teeth and asked, "Is there no other way? The lives of all living beings, including me, including Su Jin, and including all of you, if saving them requires such a cost, it's meaningless." Guan said with profound meaning, "Of course there is, and that is for you to convince the celestial spirit god to change his views, to become the god that all living beings want." "How could I possibly do that?" Bai Sheng asked with a frown. Upon entering the immortal cultivation realm, he felt his own mediocrity. There were far too many people in this world with far greater talent than him. He had only come this far by the help of Su Jin. Could someone like him persuade a celestial god? He didn't see himself as the protagonist of a story. He looked at Guin, anxiously awaiting an answer, but Guin didn't respond, just staring at him with a smile that wasn't quite a smile, which confused him even more. Suddenly, Bai Sheng had a thought. His face turned pale, and his eyes widened. His body began to tremble. Could I be the reincarnation of the celestial spirit god? Bai Sheng struggled with the turmoil in his heart and asked cautiously. Guin met his gaze and said, "If you become him, Su Jin will not be as important in your heart, but your will could make him help you save Su Jin." At those words, Bai Sheng's face darkened. "Don't worry, you still have time to choose. The long night stretches before us. Why not think about this life?" As Guin spoke, he raised his hand, and a plump chicken, plucked clean of feathers, appeared in his hand, and he began to roast the chicken. Shun Jun added from the side, "Sprinkle on more cumin." This was the first complete sentence she had said in front of Bai Sheng. Bai Sheng looked at the plump chicken in Guin's hands, his thoughts drifting off to a time long ago. Deep within a tranquil palace, Su Jin sat in front of a large bronze mirror, looking at her own beautiful reflection with hollow eyes. She began to feel weary. In pursuit of Bai Sheng, it took her 10,000 years. Helping Bai Sheng with his immortal cultivation, it took her another 10,000 years. Alas, there were always endless troubles in the world, standing in their way. She even wondered, would Bai Sheng have lived a better life without her? She had come to understand that in life, suffering is inevitable. No one is forever happy and content. Instead of being perpetually dissatisfied, it's better to think about the times once had. Su Jin began to reminisce about the moments she and Bai Sheng carefreely spent in the human world, her face revealing a sweet smile. Just then, a graceful figure emerged from the darkness behind her, a female demon in a purple dress, with a slender figure and delicate features. Tiny purple scales adorned her cheeks. She approached Su Jin from behind and bowed gently. "My lady, it's said that the Demon Emperor has invited the Demon Emperor from a human world as a guest. This grand marriage is no small matter. It will be a moment for the Demon Emperor to demonstrate his influence to the entire demon race, and your fame will spread throughout the world." The purple-dressed female demon spoke softly, her voice filled with admiration and longing. Su Jin replied calmly, "It seems the Emperor has even bigger ambitions. Yes, there are countless demon emperors and demon kings in this world. The human race has the Tao court to unite all, but the demon race doesn't have an absolute ruler yet. The Emperor wants to become such an existence," continued the purple-dressed female. Su Jin remained silent, listening to her talk about the affairs of the demon race. She felt a pang of emotion inside. Indeed, the world was so vast. To have managed so many years of joy with Bai Sheng was already extraordinary. How many loving couples could stay together for so long? She knew Bai Sheng would come to rescue her again, but he wouldn't be able to take her away. The only way to save him was to let go of their love. Su Jin's gaze gradually became cold. She was burying her love deep within her heart. "By the way, my lady, a celestial has recently appeared in the city. He claims to be a servant of the heavenly Tao, serving the true celestial gods. He says a celestial god will be born within our demon city. The Emperor values him highly, allowing him to wander the city freely. It's hard to tell if it's true or false," pondered the purple-dressed demon, chin in hand. Su Jin became interested and asked, "A celestial? What's his name?" "He calls himself the Taoless Celestial." "Taoless Celestial? Sounds quite rebellious." "My lady, be careful not to speak carelessly, in case he hears you." It was a sunny day, no wind, no rain. Guin, Shun Jun, and Bai Sheng stepped through the gates of the demon city, awestruck by the magnificent streets ahead of them. Shun Jun was utterly captivated. "I never imagined the land of the demon race could be so thriving, and there are also many cultivators coming and going," mused Shun Jun. The demons here were great demons capable of transformation. At first glance, the city seemed like one of the human race, but a closer look revealed many still had characteristics of their original demon forms. The city was vast and limitless, with mountains and uneven terrain within, the streets noisy with clamor, and the skies crowded with various mounts and magical treasures flying past, dazzling onlookers. Bai Sheng had also come to this demon city for the first time. Just witnessing its prosperity made him feel immense pressure. Not to mention cultivation level, the fact that the demon emperor could create such a city was beyond comparison with him. At least the opponent could bring prosperity to a region, but what about him? Apart from the cheap love he felt for Su Jin, what meaning did his existence hold in this world? Guan looked at Bai Sheng and smiled. Whenever you're ready, you can start. Bai Sheng took a deep breath and said, I want to look around a bit more before making a decision. Let's do it together. There's also someone in the city I'd like to meet, Guan said with a soft laugh, a playful glint in his eyes. He never expected that guy was still alive. Source, Web Zero Vel. Com, updated on Nav Zero. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 595, I Really Thought You Were Him, HTML Goo, and discovered traces of Wu Dao Xian in this demon city. Wu Dao Xian was the master of the Black Profound Emperor, and he incited the Black Profound Emperor to slay his reincarnation body. He, like the Black Profound Emperor, had died at the hands of the celestial spirit god, yet he had not truly fallen. Wu Dao Xian tutored the Black Profound Emperor in the Taoist unique venerate skill. This cultivation technique was extremely exquisite, and Guan had imparted it to Jiang Shi and Shengtian. With this skill, they were able to strive towards the golden immortal Dao fruit. It was worth mentioning that Zhu Shi also learned the Taoist unique venerate skill from the Immortal Seeker, suggesting that there was some connection between the Immortal Seeker and Wu Dao Xian. Of course, there was also the possibility that this cultivation technique was related to the Celestial Court. Currently, Zhu Shi was roaming other great thousand worlds. The Immortal Seeker was nowhere to be seen, and yet Wu Dao Xian surfaced first. He could feel that this Wu Dao Xian was not the true self. His true self was hidden within a secret space on the path of the Great Dao. The specifics of the location could only be explored after contacting his avatar. Wu Dao Xian proclaimed that an immortal god would be born here, which piqued Gu An's interest in him even further. Asterisk, could it be that he anticipated the revival of the celestial spirit god here? If that were the case, it would certainly be intriguing. Asterisk Gu and was not afraid of Wu Dao Xian causing trouble. Wu Dao Xian was not tolerated by the celestial court and had to hide everywhere, so it was unlikely he would collude with the celestial court. As for what sort of backing Wu Dao Xian had, Gu was also quite interested. Bai Sheng did not mind Gu An's proposal. He walked ahead first, indifferent to the person Gu and wanted to meet, as his mind was solely on Su Jin. Shun Jun and Guan followed behind him. Shun Jun used the sound transmission technique to ask, he's so absent-minded. Could he be willing to give up Su Jin? We'll know the answer today. Guan replied, using the sound transmission technique. Asterisk, he looked at Bai Sheng's back and felt deeply moved. It wasn't Bai Sheng and Su Jin's relationship that moved him, but his brotherhood with Bai Sheng. He somewhat missed the days of exploring mountains and waters and drinking joyously with Bai Sheng. Bai Sheng did not know he was the supporting Dao Sword Venerable, treated him with less reverence, and had no ulterior motives. They had a sense of kindred spirits. Sadly, times change, and Bai Sheng had lost his carefree nature and had long forgotten him. Over 30,000 years had passed. Now the only one he could chat freely with was Shun Jun. Perhaps the loss of such companionship was the price of power. Asterisk, as Guan was sighing over the changes brought by time, the demon city grew increasingly lively. A strong wind swept through, startling the demons and cultivators on the streets as they looked up, only to see a large fish with black wings flying over the city walls and heading towards the distance. Its wingspan spanned thousands of feet, blocking out the sky and plunging the street where Guin and his companions stood into darkness. Bai Sheng, having seen much, was not surprised. But if he knew that there was a pavilion on the fish's back, with someone inside not weaker than the Demon Emperor, he would surely be shocked. The Demon Emperor of this city was named the Great Liang Demon Emperor. Although he was a divine thought, true immortal in cultivation, he possessed clues to a heaven and earth ultimate treasure, which was why all the great powers came to celebrate. Heaven and earth ultimate treasure was the immortal cultivation realm's term for the most powerful magical treasures. These treasures were rich with destiny, even capable of creating a world harboring the power of heaven and earth. These heaven and earth ultimate treasures also originated from the battle court. Those who crafted them were all golden immortals. Thus, they contained world power. Guin did not harbor ill feelings towards the great Liang Demon Emperor. Although this guy kidnapped Su Jin, he treated her politely and promised to only win her heart before taking her. The reason for holding the grand wedding in advance was because that heaven and earth ultimate treasure was about to be born. It was worth noting that people from the Dao court also came to congratulate the great Liang Demon Emperor. Different realms had different circles. The great Liang Demon Emperor could at most invite those in the Zai immortal realm. Such beings were rare great powers in the world and were considered ancient myths to mortal spirits. Bai Sheng, though wandering aimlessly, was being subtly guided towards Wu Dao Xian under the influence of Gu An's Dao intent. As time went by, more and more powerful beings arrived, with steeds even grander than the previous black-winged fish, bringing glory to the city's demons. They did not know just how strong those powers were. They only felt the commanding presence of the great Liang Demon Emperor. An hour quickly passed. Unknowingly, Bai Sheng arrived in front of a giant stele, located at a crossroads on the street, towering 100 feet high and surrounded by hundreds of beings. Wu Daoxian was also here. In this lifetime, Wu Daoxian wore a blue Taoist robe, his hair completely white, and held a horsetail whisk in his hand, exuding an immortal-like aura. He held the whisk in one hand and stroked his beard with the other, seemingly deep in thought. Guin walked directly towards him, brushing past Bai Sheng. Following close behind, Shenzhen's steps made Bai Sheng subconsciously follow suit. This stele seems to contain some profound meaning. Guin approached Wu Daoxian and spoke softly. Wu Daoxian glanced at him, initially dismissive, but upon seeing him, Wu Daoxian's expression suddenly changed. Sorry, the Oval Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Wu Daoxian scrutinized Guin, asking, "What? Did you see something?" To him, Guin appeared to be merely a celestial and earthly immortal, but Guin's features seemed familiar. Asterisk, why did he resemble that rebellious disciple of mine from before? Asterisk Guin looked at Shenzhen and asked with a smile, "Did you see anything?" Upon hearing the question, Shenzhen began to seriously examine the 100-foot-tall stele in front. Wu Daoxian kept his gaze on Guin, his eyes sharp, seemingly wanting to see through him. Bai Sheng stood at the back, inspecting Wu Daoxian. He had seen many Taoists like Wu Daoxian before, but he could feel that Wu Daoxian had a certain hostility towards Gu, and I see a giant red tortoise. This stele is a piece of its shell. Shenzhen suddenly spoke, causing Wu Daoxian to shift his gaze to her, eyes filled with surprise. Asterisk, this woman can actually see through it? Asterisk, Shenzhen continued to observe intently. She frowned and said, "The red tortoise is still alive, seeking to find this fragment of its shell." Wu Daoxian became interested in her and asked with a smile, "This young lady is remarkable, seeing the cause and effect from outer heaven. May I ask whose tutelage you are under?" Shenzhen snapped back to reality and did not answer Wu Daoxian. Instead, she looked towards Guin, giving an answer with her eyes. Wu Daoxian turned his attention back to Guin and sighed. "Young brother, you bear a strong resemblance to a certain disciple of mine. Were it not for seeing with my own eyes his soul scattered, I might have thought you were him." His eyes showed a trace of nostalgia, as if reminiscing about that disciple. Bai Sheng, hearing this, breathed a silent sigh of relief. It didn't sound like a vendetta. Although unsure of how strong Guan was, he sensed that Wu Dao Xian's Dao practice was unfathomable. Such a man was not to be provoked. Guan nodded and said, "You also resemble a master of mine. Were it not for seeing with my own eyes his beheading, I might have thought you were him." With these words, Wu Dao Xian's pupils shrank suddenly. Almost instantly, he lifted his right hand. Shun Jun and Bai Sheng were unable to react in time. However, Gu An's movement was quicker. Slap! Gu An's right hand landed on Wu Dao Xian's shoulder, and with this pat, his mana dissipated instantly, his eyes widening. Source: Web 0 Vel. Com. Updated on Nav 0. Co. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 596. Innate Immortal Gods. Guan stared at Wu Dao Immortal, his eyes full of shock and anger. Because it wasn't his real body, he didn't despair. He stared intently at Guan and said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect you to still be alive." Guan pressed on him, saying, "I didn't expect you to be alive either." Shun Jun and Bai Sheng sensed something was wrong and became vigilant. Wu Dao Immortal asked coldly, "Did you come specifically to find me, or for him?" Guan smiled and said, "He has already arrived, right before your eyes." Hearing this, Wu Dao Immortal was stunned for a moment and subconsciously looked toward Shun Jun. Could it be that Shun Jun, with such low cultivation level, was a reincarnation of the celestial spirit god? Although Shun Jun was female, Wu Dao Immortal, who had seen and known much, found the notion of a man reincarnating as a woman not strange at all. Guan shook his head and turned to glance at Bai Sheng, saying, "The god who slew me back then is him." Wu Dao Immortal couldn't help but look towards Bai Sheng, his eyebrows tightly furrowed. In his eyes, Bai Sheng seemed so mediocre. Bai Sheng was also stunned. He subconsciously looked at Guan. Had Guan died at his hands in a previous life? Wasn't that a deep grudge and great hatred? In such circumstances, why would Guan want to help him? Shun Jun had not expected Guan to have such a past either, and inwardly sighed that indeed, behind invincibility was a difficult path. Wu Dao Immortal fell into silence, more concerned with what Guan wanted to do than the reincarnation of the celestial spirit god. This body was still too weak, unable to resist this young man's suppression. Wu Dao Immortal was annoyed, thinking of many years of grievances, his anger uncontrollably rising. Once he had placed great expectations on the Black Profound Emperor, but unfortunately, the Black Profound Emperor resisted him and even caused him to be executed by the celestial spirit god, and his real Bodis injuries hadn't fully recovered to this day. Guan saw through what he was thinking and said, "Let's watch a good show together next." As his words fell, Guan withdrew his hand, but Wu Dao Immortal felt his chi power being sealed within his body. He was now like a mortal, utterly powerless. Wu Dao Immortal knew he couldn't escape, so he didn't act rashly. He turned his gaze to Bai Sheng and said, "The immortal god I'm looking for is not him." Guan asked, "Are there other immortal gods in this realm?" He hadn't detected the traces of other immortal gods, but he didn't doubt Wu Dao Immortal's words. Instead, it piqued his curiosity. Even though there were no traces of immortal gods, the legacies of immortal gods were there. LVCN held an immortal god's legacy, and before the reshaping of heaven and earth, followers of immortal gods wandered the human world, promoting the name of the heavenly Tao. These signs proved that an immortal god could appear at any time. Yes, this god is not an ascended god, but an innate immortal god, born from the celestial Tao destiny. Wu Dao Immortal replied, not minding sharing this information with Guan despite being sealed by him. Though they had deadly enmities, both stood against the celestial court. Guan thought of Fairy Yao Xian and suddenly guessed something, directing his gaze towards Su Jin. Indeed, Su Jin was pregnant, deliberately hiding and sealing the fetus, stopping its development, undetected even by the great Liang Demon Emperor. CTH Nellfire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Bai Sheng had reincarnated many times and fathered children, but had never begotten an innate immortal god. Why could he this time? Guan carefully observed. The child in Su Jin's womb had no trace of celestial Tao destiny. Could it transform later? Guan pondered as his gaze shifted towards the 100 zhang stele ahead. He began to chat idly with Wu Daoxian, discussing the heavens and earth and the origins of the steel. Baixing noticed that those around them showed no reaction, as if they hadn't heard the conversation about the immortal gods. He realized he had embroiled himself in great trouble. Yet he was prepared to face death if only it could save Su Jin. Past lives, destinies, he didn't believe in any of it. He was him. He was not a god. And should he become one, the godhead turn-in would surely not be ruled by his current will. Whatever being you are, your resurrection was caused by my sacrifice, and you must help me save her, just save her, without harming anyone else. Bai Sheng silently recited this to himself, as though he were conversing with his own soul. Time continued to advance, and the hour of the great wedding grew ever nearer. In the heart of Demon City, a sumptuous feast had already begun. The great Liang Demon Emperor was making small talk with various guests. Female demons danced and sang, and various spirit fruits and spiritual wine were presented, making everything appear luxuriously lively. Although Bai Sheng couldn't see the details of the grand wedding, listening to conversations of passers-by made him increasingly anxious. Within Demon City, his divine sense met obstacles everywhere, forcing him into wild speculations. He frequently glanced at Guan, who was steadily chatting with Wu Daoxian, oblivious to the matter of him becoming the celestial spirit god. This only heightened his unease and anxiety. Today is the great wedding day of the great Liang Demon Emperor and his beloved Su Jin. I thank all who have come to support this event. To make your journey worthwhile, I will present a heaven and earth ultimate treasure for all to experience the true meaning of the great Tao. Whether high or low in cultivation level, all may find a connection with the Tao. The voice of the great Liang Demon Emperor suddenly boomed through the city, interrupting the conversation between Guan and Wu Daoxian. Bai Sheng immediately became desperate, unable to resist speaking out. "Brother Gu, aren't we starting yet?" Guan turned to look at him, asking, "Have you thought it through?" Bai Sheng took a deep breath and said, "I've thought it through. Let me become him, become a celestial spirit god." Hearing the voice of the great Liang Demon Emperor had driven him to lose all reason, with his only thought being to save Su Jin. Wu Daoxian also glanced at Bai Sheng, a sneer appearing in his eyes. Could the all-powerful, invincible celestial spirit god really be trapped by love? His gaze shifted back to Guan, thinking this youngster was definitely up to no good, playing such tricks on a celestial god. Hearing Bai Sheng's words, a change came over Guan's eyes, and Bai Sheng, meeting his gaze, felt the world spinning around him. At the same time, in central Demon City, on 1,000 steps, Su Jin stood next to the great Liang Demon Emperor under a red bridal veil, conducting herself with grace. The great Liang Demon Emperor, clad in a dragon-embroidered black robe and towering in stature, with 2 horns amid his blood-red hair, merely standing there emitted an unrivaled aura. The great Liang Demon Emperor surveyed the expansive square below, where high platforms surrounded the perimeter, each occupied by beings whose cultivation level was no less than his. He was quite pleased with his pulling power. After today's grand event, his fame would spread across the whole world. He first aimed to make all demons across the world recognize his name, which would then pave the way for unifying the entire demon race. The news of the heaven and earth ultimate treasure stirred an uproar among the high platforms. Many demons and cultivators hadn't expected the great Liang Demon Emperor to unveil such a treasure directly. The great Liang Demon Emperor relished their discussions. Just as he was about to speak, a terrifying aura suddenly exploded from afar, surging to the skies. Boom! The entire demon city shook violently, causing the expressions of great demons and great cultivators to change as they all turned in the same direction. The smile on the great Liang Demon Emperor's face froze, his brows furrowing, a chill appearing in his eyes. Someone dared to challenge his authority? Truly seeking death. Source: Web 0 Vel. Com. Updated on Nav 0. Co. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 597. Go meet God at the 100-yard steel. Hundreds of cultivators and demons looked towards Bai Sheng in shock. Bai Sheng's body burst forth with dazzling white light, his chi force like flames, his robes fluttering intensely, the light masking his features, making him appear quite divine and full of oppressiveness. Shenzhen's cheeks fluttered with her hair, her eyes widened, looking at Bai Sheng in surprise. Although she had known before coming that Bai Sheng would transform into a celestial spirit god, actually witnessing this scene still surprised her. She could feel Bai Sheng's soul transforming. A power that made her Tao heart tremble surged forth, unstoppable. Such a powerful presence was truly worthy of a celestial god. Shenzhen couldn't help but glance at Guan. She secretly wondered just how powerful was Guan, who could have thrust such a formidable figure into reincarnation. Fellow Taoist Wu Dao was also surprised. He could tell that the celestial spirit god hadn't entered reincarnation willingly. Thinking back to 20,000 years ago, when the Great Thousand World underwent reconstruction, the celestial spirit god disappeared. Could it have been the black, profound emperor's doing? He looked towards Guan, filled with confusion. How exactly did this boy manage it? Bai Sheng, who was recovering his cultivation level, slowly floated upwards, attracting more and more beings to gaze at him. Figures appeared atop the buildings in all directions. Those were demon soldiers of the great Liang Demon Emperor, none with small cultivation levels. But upon seeing Bai Sheng, each showed a face full of fear. As Bai Sheng's aura grew stronger, powerful figures continuously appeared in the sky. On the steps above, Su Jin couldn't help but lift her veil, her makeup exquisite, as beautiful as an immortal in a painting, her eyebrows furrowed. For some reason, this momentum felt vaguely familiar to her. She tried to remember, but couldn't recall where and when she had felt such an aura before. "My beloved, don't panic. I will return momentarily," said the great Liang Demon Emperor in a low voice, though his face didn't appear as calm as he felt inside, because that mysterious aura was rising too quickly, so much so that he couldn't remain seated. Just after speaking, he vanished from the spot. Su Jin still looked towards the sky where the aura soared, her pupils suddenly widening. She seemed to think of something. Boom! A gust of fierce wind came howling, making Su Jin's dress flutter violently. Time seemed to freeze. She instinctively glanced over and saw a figure glowing with intense light standing next to her. In this figure's hand held a demon, the great Liang Demon Emperor. The great Liang Demon Emperor was held by the throat by the glowing figure's right hand, lifted into the air, unable to break free, his face showing pain and anger. Su Jin's heart churned wildly, too late to think. The great Liang Demon Emperor had just flown out and was captured. Even after living more than 20,000 years, she was stunned at that moment. Outrageous! A roaring shout shook heaven and earth. A great power cultivator from the Zizai Immortal realm appeared next to the great Liang Demon Emperor, wanting to rescue him. Accompanied by a deafening explosion, this great power cultivator was knocked back away, smashing through a palace and further buildings, disappearing into the distance. The glow on Su Jin's face faded. She gradually saw the true face of the person next to her, and she couldn't help but widen her eyes. This person was Bai Sheng. Bai Sheng looked no different from before. Only his hair was disheveled and fluttering in the wind. His expression was so indifferent, his gaze towards the great Liang demon emperor, as if looking at a dead man. "You, how is this possible?" The great Liang demon emperor spoke with a trembling voice, his tone filled with shock. He naturally recognized Bai Sheng. When Su Jin had pleaded for Bai Sheng before, Bai Sheng seemed no different than an insect in his eyes. Had it only been so long? Search asterisk the novel _fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Bai Sheng had actually rendered him unable to resist. He even felt that if Bai Sheng exerted force, he would shatter. He had never felt such a terrifying sensation before. His heart was extremely fearful. Su Jin gazed at the indifferent Bai Sheng, murmuring to herself. At this moment, Bai Sheng was no longer Bai Sheng, but the celestial spirit god. The celestial spirit god glanced at her, furrowing his brow, the coldness in his eyes, making Su Jin's heart ache deeply. More and more mighty figures appeared around. They were not aligned with the great Liang demon emperor, but were there for the heaven and earth ultimate treasure. Who might you be? The heaven and earth ultimate treasure has not yet appeared. So why are you fellow Taoists in such a rush to act? Who is this person? I have never seen him before. Such aura has already surpassed the 9 heavens of the immortal path, and it is still rising. I feel like he is not here for the heaven and earth ultimate treasure. It's like he has just awakened from reincarnation tribulation. As each powerful being took out their magical treasures, the entire demon city trembled non-stop, with stones even flying around, and dark clouds gradually gathering in the sky, darkening the demon city. The celestial spirit god ignored the discussions around him, slightly tilting his head and looking towards the distance with the corner of his eye. He had already spotted Guan and Wu Dao Immortal. He knew he couldn't escape, still being under control. The entire demon city had descended into chaos. Countless demons took to the skies to see what exactly had happened. Many also fled in panic. Guan, Shun Jun, and Wu Dao Immortal saw the figures around them swiftly dispersing. "Let's go, it's time to see the god," Guan said, softly with a smile, then stepped towards the sky, Shun Jun and Wu Dao Immortal following behind. Wu Dao Immortal found himself unable to move, only capable of following Gu and flying towards the celestial spirit god. From a distance, as his gaze landed on the celestial spirit god, his face turned unnatural, his head involuntarily twitching. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 598 Celestial Court and Mortal Spirit Gu and brought Shun Jun and the Immortal who defied Tao. And soon they arrived at the wedding banquet plaza of the great Liang Demon Emperor. At that moment, the square was a mess, with colorful cloths still fluttering in the air. The celestial spirit god stood atop the steps, looking down indifferently at the 3 persons below. Shenzhen looked at him with a secretly shocked heart. Is this a celestial god? Although there were no changes in facial features or figure, the aura exuded was utterly different. Even with her current cultivation level, facing the celestial spirit god, Shenzhen couldn't help but feel a sense of reverence. This was the sentiment a mortal spirit felt when facing immortal gods. It was hard to imagine such beings would fall into the realm of reincarnation. Facing the gaze of the celestial spirit god, the immortal who defied doubt trembled even more violently, not daring to meet the gaze of the celestial spirit god. So it is. I have seen you before. I felt then that those guys were not their true selves. The voice of the celestial spirit god descended from above, lofty and filled with authority. Guan looked at him and asked, Have these experiences of reincarnation made you feel anything? The celestial spirit God's expression remained unchanged as he said, I know what you want to do, hoping I understand the experience of mortal spirits, to feel pity for them. Do you think I have never had such experiences? Although Guan had searched the memory of the celestial spirit God, everything about the celestial court was blank, so his understanding of the celestial spirit God was not complete. Before becoming a celestial God, we must all go through the ordeal of reincarnation. The celestial court doesn't make us pity mortal spirits. Instead, it makes us clearly understand the difference between immortals and mortals. You help those mortal spirits, and they will indeed appreciate you. But the moment you stop helping, even if you do nothing at all, mortal spirits will hate you, believing their misfortunes are all you're doing. The tone of the celestial spirit God grew colder, even revealing his disdain for mortal spirits. Immortal gods created the heavens and the earth to achieve enlightenment, yet the world nurtured all living beings. The immortal gods did not abandon all living beings. Instead, they created the heavenly Tao so that all living beings could live better lives. Immortal gods even imparted the method of cultivating immortality to all living beings in the all heavens and myriad realms. Yet what they received in return was rebellion after rebellion. Ia the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The words of the celestial spirit God shook Shenzhen. She didn't question it because all cultivators had such ambitions. It's just that she had never considered these issues from the perspective of immortal gods. The celestial spirit God gazed at Guan and said, Do you think what you're doing is for justice or to cover up your compassion for your own kind? If you became an immortal god, would you still act the same? Guan responded, There are indeed many things in this world that are hard to judge as right or wrong. But if you say the immortal gods created everything, that may not be so. Did you create the great Tao? Was it your choice for the world to foster all living beings? You were just walking ahead, blocking those behind you from reaching the heights you've attained, then claim it's because we don't try hard enough that we are ungrateful. You can say that, but if that's really what you think, then it's truly pitiable. Shenzhen looked at Guan, her eyes filled with admiration. This was what she admired about Guan. He was never confused. The immortal who defied Tao also looked at Guan, hearing his disdain for the celestial court. This lad who has never ascended to immortality, yet he disdains the immortal? Even though the immortal who defied Tao had abandoned the celestial court, he revered the celestial Tao immortal position and still aspired to ascend to immortality. The celestial spirit God, upon hearing Guan's words, didn't get angry, but from his narrowed eyes, it was evident he felt agitated. You think by not killing me, you can delay the celestial court's attention on the celestial spirit great world. You're wrong. In fact, it's not I who insist on destroying the celestial spirit great world, but this world must perish. That is the celestial order from the celestial court. Although I am interested in that treasure, I can't deny that I extended the lifespan of this great world. The celestial spirit God spoke slowly, his gaze never leaving Guan's lips curled into a smile, and said, I indeed fear the celestial court, but you can't deny that I let you live. With our positions, you should have been annihilated or forever suffer the sorrows of reincarnation. But now I have given you the opportunity to speak with me. I have even let you create innate immortal gods. The pupils of the celestial spirit God suddenly dilated, as he hadn't expected that his secret maneuvering was seen by Guan. How high was this man's Tao practice? Guan looked at him and asked, I wonder if an immortal god can create innate immortal gods privately. The face of the celestial spirit God turned ugly. Indeed, Guan was merely probing. He had previously wondered if the celestial spirit God could give birth to innate immortal gods. Why hadn't he created an army of immortal gods? Clearly, the celestial court didn't allow such behavior. To become an immortal god of the celestial court, while one could achieve longevity and immortality, one would also lose a lot, especially freedom. The task of spreading the heavenly Tao and the celestial court will be given to you. You should be quite skilled at it. If you succeed, it'll allow you to hide in this world in the future. We won't interfere with each other, Guin said softly. The Taoless Immortal carefully asked, Really? Really? With that, Guin turned and left, carrying Shunjun with him into the distance. The Taoless Immortal looked in the direction they left, feeling relieved. His eyes turned chilly. Elsewhere, Guin took Shunjun to a distant forest. He began, Wait here for me. Sujin will come to this place. I have matters to attend to. Without waiting for Shunjun to speak, Guin disappeared from the spot. Shunjun was taken aback for a moment, then shook her head with a smile. She leapt up, sitting cross-legged on a tree branch, and began to recall celestial spirit God's figure. In a dark cave, green candlelight flickered on the walls. The Taoless Immortal opened his eyes, his brows furrowed, and he muttered to himself, How is he still alive? He was the true body, located on the path of the great Tao, unbelievably distant from the celestial spirit great world. But he could maintain contact with his avatar. Learning that the black profound emperor was still alive and entangled with celestial spirit God puzzled him. Were these two really planning to stand against the celestial court together, truly seeking death? The Taoless Immortal began to ponder the arrangement Guin had for his avatar and whether he should collaborate with Guin. He did not notice an additional figure had appeared in the darkness behind him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Ever since being slapped by the celestial spirit god, she had felt a burning pain in her abdomen, which pained her heart even more. From that slap, she felt the celestial spirit god's disgust for her. She had searched for him painfully for 10,000 years, then accompanied him in cultivation for another 10,000 years, dedicating herself entirely to him, only to be abandoned in the end. As for the past lives and present lives, the celestial spirit god spoke of, she hadn't cared at all. Awakening memories of a past life would make her become someone else? She didn't believe it. The more she thought, the sadder she became, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Her vision started to blur. She felt exhaustion and wanted to collapse and sleep soundly. Suddenly, she saw two figures ahead, which alarmed her enough to stop in her tracks. It was a dense forest. The remaining light of dusk spilled between the trees, casting a gloomy and quiet atmosphere. Sujin's vision cleared, and she frowned as she looked ahead, a sword suddenly appearing in her hand. Miss Sujin, long time no see. Do you remember me? Guin stood up to greet Sujin, and then tucked the green hero travelogue into his chest. Sujin tightened her brow as she looked at Guin. She seemed to recall something. Her eyes widened in astonishment as she asked, Is it you? How are you still alive? Guin smiled and said, If you have nowhere to go, why not come with me? After you give birth to the child, you can go wherever you wish. Sujin immediately became vigilant, staring at Guin with a defensive face, and asked in a stern voice, What do you want? Guin's expression changed, causing Sujin to become momentarily lost in thought. Shunjun turned her head to look at Guin, filled with curiosity. What divine skill was this? Guin stretched lazily and said, It's time to go back. Shunjun nodded. She too wanted to sit down quietly and comprehend the celestial Tao immortal gods. Seasons changed, and a year quickly passed by. In the courtyard, Guin opened his eyes, and with a thought, an Xin appeared out of nowhere by his side. Master, what is it? An Xin asked curiously. Guin stood up and said, Go and bring that child in, according to my previous instructions. And Zin's interest was piqued, and she disappeared on the spot. Shunjun, who was sitting in front of the artifact refining cauldron, turned towards Guin and asked curiously, Are you really going to adopt that child? Guin replied, That child is extraordinary. Having him follow Sujin will only bring her misfortune, and besides, she should start her life anew. Innate immortal gods, TSK. I feel like he's going to stir up a frenzy of competition within the dojo, Shanjun teased. The qualifications of an innate immortal god must be beyond her imagination, and with Gu An's guidance, his cultivation speed must be astonishing. Guan did not argue. He indeed planned to cultivate the child of the celestial spirit god properly. Do you have some scheme with him that even I don't know about? Guan looked at the artifact refining cauldron, contemplating silently in his mind. An hour later, an Xin returned, holding a baby in her arms. Everyone in the dojo had gathered in Gu An's courtyard, as they had heard that Guan was going to take on a disciple. Everyone was curious. What kind of child could catch Gu An's attention? Seeing an Xin return, the crowd immediately surrounded her. This child is so small. How has he already achieved foundation establishment? Nonsense. The child must be a genius, able to perform chi absorption cultivation with each breath. Otherwise, how could he catch the master's eye? He's so cute. Let me hold him. Cute, huh? In 20 years, he'll surely be a conceited fellow, and then you won't find him so cute. An Xin did not pass the baby to the others. After a brief chat with everyone, she approached Guan and handed the swaddled infant to him. Guan held the sleeping infant with a smile appearing on his face. Such a good boy. Guan began to gently stroke the baby's cheeks, murmuring softly to himself. An Xin prompted, "Master, give him a name. Why don't you?" Miss Su Jin said it's up to you. She had taken a liking to the baby as soon as she saw him, so she was also looking forward to the changes he would bring to the dojo in the future. Guan pondered and said, "This child is fatherless and can be said to be born of heaven. Let us give him the surname Tian, and name him Hao. He shall be called Tian Hao from now on." Tian Hao. The crowd began to mull over the name, not thinking that Guan would choose it carelessly. An Xin was stunned, muttering to herself, "How?" She held an expectation in her heart and looked forward to how Guan would respond, but unfortunately, Guan did not meet her gaze. Guan lifted little Tian Hao above his head, looked up at Tian Hao, and smiled. "From now on, you are my disciple." At the same time, in outer heaven, deep in the cosmos, below the world gate, the celestial spirit god who was shimmering with a strong light suddenly opened his eyes, flipped over his right palm, and two characters appeared in his palm. Tian Hao. I see. No wonder I cannot find it. This twist of fate is truly remarkable. Celestial spirit, immortal venerable, I have lost to you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Shenzhen also glanced at Tian Hao. She was the person in the dojo who interacted with Tian Hao the least. As she seldom spoke to him, Tian Hao was a bit afraid of her from a young age, feeling she was not someone to be trifled with. Tian Hao turned around, raised his right hand, and, as he focused on his palm, something gathered there under the watchful eyes of an Xin and Shenzhen. Strands of golden flames swiftly wrapped around each other, forming a fireball, and within this fireball emitted a light. At first glance, it seemed like a tiny sun. And Xin and Shanjun's expressions changed, because they could feel that the flames Tian Hao had summoned were not ordinary. This fire never extinguishes. I've tried it. If I release it, it can float in the air and keep burning, Tian Hao said with a proud smile. Although he hadn't formally started immortal cultivation, he was already aware of its existence. As for immortal cultivation, he didn't see it as all that important because he was getting stronger every moment. Tian Hao looked toward Guan, wanting to see his master's reaction, only to find that the master was still lying on the chair with his eyes closed. "Master!" Tian Hao shouted loudly, startling the birds in the forest into flight. Guan dug in his ears, rolled over, and stood up. He looked helplessly at Tian Hao, who then raised his hand as if offering a treasure, showing the small sun to his master. "Is that it?" Guan looked disdainful, his tone filled with contempt. Just as Tian Hao was about to retort, Guan raised his hand, his palm facing the celestial vault. In almost an instant, the entire world plunged into crimson, and the temperature between heaven and earth soared. Tian Hao subconsciously looked up, then his mouth fell open, his face showing an expression of disbelief. And Xian and Shenzhen looked up to see a colossal sun occupying the entire celestial vault, with no edges visible in any direction. Oppressive, awe-inspiring. It was the first time Tian Hao had witnessed such a spectacular sight. He had lived for 17 years, all within the Taoist field of the beginningless, where no disciples had engaged in combat, so this was truly his first real encounter with the power of the immortal Tao. He shuffled his feet, turned around, and looked in all directions, gradually becoming excited, his body starting to tremble. The corners of Gu An's mouth lifted, and with a squeeze of his right hand, the blazing sun in the sky suddenly vanished as if it had never been there. But the warmth still felt around him told Tian Hao that what he had just seen was no illusion. Tian Hao turned to look at Guan, suddenly exhilarated, and ran to kneel beside him, grasping Gu An's arm, excitedly saying, "Master, teach me. I want to cultivate as an immortal." Having grown up, he naturally understood the difference between a master and a father. Since his master had taken him as a disciple, he would certainly teach him to cultivate. Chapter 601. A great opportunity in the early morning. A dense fog enveloped the land, and mountain peaks emerged like the tips of swords, resembling an ethereal, immortal realm of the human world. Atop one of the mountains, there lay a courtyard filled with flora, and a slender-limbed white dog sprawled on the ground, deep in slumber. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Li Xuanyu, dressed in a white robe, stepped out. The sunlight swept over the distant peaks and fell upon her. She raised her right hand, and a petal drifted into her palm. She looked down at it, her gaze cold. A female disciple soared on her flying sword across the sea of clouds, swiftly entering the courtyard. Before she even touched the ground, her flying sword swiftly shrank and flew into her sleeve. After landing, she took 2 steps forward and smiled. "Master, a talent of unprecedented caliber has recently emerged from Qinquan's sect. All the branches are vying for him. Master, we should not miss this opportunity." As Dao Court's fame grew, Qinquan's sect also began to emulate Dao Court, establishing different branches to nurture healthy competition and to better manage power. Li Xuanyu, now a branch leader and an elder of Qinquan's sect, had stayed on even after Tang Kai left. Ia the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Hearing the disciples' words, Li Xuanyu appeared indifferent and said, "There are many talents. Why bother competing? This one is different. He comes from the Forbidden Lands, brought to Qinquan's sect personally by an immortal." The disciple hurriedly explained. "Forbidden Lands." Li Xuanyu's expression shifted slightly. She was well aware of the Forbidden Lands and knew that the immortal was an Exen. Why would an immortal bring his disciple into Qinquan's sect? Li Xuanyu asked. "I wondered about that too, but now I understand. That disciple called Tian Hao is truly extraordinary. The sect hierarch has already designated him as the next sect hierarch." The disciple was excited, her face full of admiration as she spoke of Tian Hao. Curious, Li Xuanyu inquired, "Is he really that impressive?" The disciple nodded fervently and said, "It said that upon joining the sect, he mastered the great divine power on the inheritance pillar after just one look. It's unbelievable." Li Xuanyu pondered thoughtfully. Tian Hao. She hesitated, contemplating whether to try to forge more connections with Guan, yet hesitant to disturb him. She had nothing particular to ask of Guan. It was just an inexplicable desire to understand him. How had Guan come to such a distant place? And why did he possess such formidable cultivation level? What adversities had he faced? While speaking, he raised his left hand to support his face, his eyes lazy. Li Xuanyu also looked out the window, watching the people coming and going on the street. She wasn't sure if it was just her imagination, but she felt a certain mood as well. Although Guan was watching the street, his heart was actually looking towards outer heaven. The world gate was stirring. A figure was walking out amid the intense light. Celestial Spirit God, finding this great thousand world was not easy. Was it your doing, or has the Celestial Spirit immortal, venerable, not completely fallen? A laughing voice emanated from the world gate, and immediately after, a gray-robed Taoist stepped out. He had the appearance of a young child with white hair, holding a horsetail whisk in one hand and a white jade bottle in the other, his body surrounded by an aura of immortality that faintly sparkled with silver light, as if containing stars. The Celestial Spirit God stood up and turned to face the newcomer. The divine light around him dissipated, revealing his true form, still bearing the face of Baisheng. Greetings, deity of the moon. Though the Celestial Spirit God's tone was cold, he still bowed to the deity of the moon. The deity of the moon smiled. He approached the Celestial Spirit God and chuckled. How many years has it been? Have you still not found that treasure? The Celestial Spirit God replied, What treasure? I'm not aware. The reason I haven't destroyed this world is because I see a destiny here that is favorable for the Celestial Court. The deity of the moon glanced into the depths of the universe, saying, The celestial Tao destiny is indeed rising, and the name of the Celestial Court is spreading. However, I know what you truly desire. The Celestial Spirit God's face remained unchanged, quietly staring at the deity of the moon. After a while, the deity of the moon withdrew his gaze. He looked at the deity of the moon and said, With your talent, your cultivation level shouldn't be this low. When will you ascend? The Celestial Spirit God answered, The heavenly Tao will decide. I only need to stay at my immortal position and wait quietly for the heavenly Tao. Ha! If you don't bow your head, how can he allow the heavenly Tao to fall upon you? The deity of the moon taunted. The Celestial Spirit God fell silent once more. The deity of the moon's expression turned cold as he said, Do something for me, and I will help conceal your crimes, allowing you in this great thousand world to continue to exist. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Big brother, Tian Hao's talent is indeed beyond ordinary. With his recent breakthrough to the wandering immortal realm, I'm afraid we can't keep him hidden any longer. Gu Changsheng said with concern. Lin Chuan sighed. More than his reputation, I worry that he will become arrogant. Honestly, the last time I faced him, I could no longer suppress him. He's had too smooth a ride, never faced hardship, and it's hard to imagine what kind of person he'll become in the future. Cheng Ming rolled her eyes at him. What's there to fear? He's not just backed by the Qingquan sect. He is elder and to guide him. That may be true, but you've also met Tian Hao. The boy isn't arrogant or domineering, but he's very proud. Once he's set on something, nobody can tell him otherwise. The four discussed among themselves, while Yi Qing Shan remained silent, sipping his spiritual tea, lost in thought. Just then, a figure descended from the sky and landed outside the pavilion, prompting all five to look over and rise to their feet in shock. The newcomer was Tian Hao. At that moment, Tian Hao had a somber face and his gaze was full of oppression. A sudden unease gripped the hearts of those in the pavilion. Had the brat overheard their conversation? Tian Hao took a deep breath and said, Sect hierarch for elders, I want to grow stronger. From today onwards, please instruct me. Whatever you teach, I'm willing to learn. Lin Chuan frowned. What can we teach you? Soon enough, you will surpass us. My master told me to earnestly experience the Qingquan sect with you. You don't need to teach me spells or divine skills. Just teach me how to conduct myself. Tian Hao said, unable to help but clench his fists. He was not angry or frustrated. He was afraid. Recalling the recent sparring session, chills ran down his spine. Qingmeng seemed to notice something was off and asked, "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Tian Hao shook his head. "I'm fine. I just went back to the forbidden area after my breakthrough and had a round of sparring with my master." Hearing this, the 5 people in the pavilion exchanged glances. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. As more and more beings became aware of these myths, the celestial Tao destiny within the world began to rise noticeably, and a celestial Tao light layer above the celestial spirit great world grew increasingly bright. This also made Guan realize something. Despite the difference between immortals and mortals, the celestial court did want all beings to be aware of their existence. In the currently circulating myths of the celestial court, the most formidable was the profound star Immortal monarch. He was omnipotent, creating heavens and earth, could hear the hearts of all living beings, and could save them from their suffering. The profound star Immortal monarch was the master of the deity of the moon, who was zealously crafting the Immortal monarch's image. Guan had an impression of this immortal god. Before the reconstruction of the world, this god's followers roamed the human world, widely spreading his name. This resulted in many ancient texts written by old believers, allowing descendants to learn of history and further believe in these myths. It is worth mentioning that many imperial dynasties in the human world have faith in the profound star Immortal monarch and have even established a destiny connection with it. For example, Li Xiandao of the Tai Tasang dynasty was the earliest person to receive the power of the profound star Immortal monarch, which occurred in the previous era. Guan had never interfered with this matter because, in his view, everyone has their own fortunes, and he preferred to observe the development of all things from the sidelines. Xiaolan could not comprehend the existence of immortal gods. In her opinion, those with great power from the Tao court were already the strongest beings. How could there be immortal gods even more powerful than them? Having reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, she felt almost omnipotent and even wanted to venture to outer heaven. It was hard for her to imagine just how powerful the mythical immortal gods, if they truly existed, would be. Xiaolan began to conspire, suspecting that there were forces beneath the heavens harboring the intent to subvert the Tao court. The Tao court is the common master of the world, equivalent to the heavenly Tao, and essentially assumes the role of immortal gods, making rules for heaven and earth. Now that all beings are aware that there are even more formidable immortal gods above the Tao court, what should they think of the Tao court? Guan did not pay much attention to Xiaolan's thoughts. Everyone has a perspective, and Xiaolan, now situated within the Tao court, would naturally consider its interests. The world is still too vast, and the Tao court has not fully unified heaven and earth. Guan sighed. Xiaolan picked up the liquor bottle and, while pouring Guan a drink, asked, "Why is it always me talking? Brother Gu, don't you have any questions? Or is there something you desire? I can help you obtain it now." Guan replied with a smile, "Don't worry about me. I was originally just an ordinary person. To have come this far, I'm already very satisfied. I know what you're worried about. I have not lost my freedom. While you've been in seclusion, I often went out for a walk. I've made quite a few friends in the Tao court. I'm truly content, and my greatest joy is hearing others marvel at your prowess. It makes me proud as well." Xiaolan was deeply touched by his words. She put down the liquor bottle, rose involuntarily, then moved closer to Guan, looking at him with affection. Xiaolan held Guan's hand. He didn't refuse, watching her slowly lean closer to him. When Xiaolan's face obscured the lower half of Guan's face, his eyes looked up to the heavens. At that moment, Leah was being intercepted by the deity of the moon. E of the novel, F. Ire. Inti website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Wave after wave crashed onto the beach. Dressed in black, Leah frowned deeply, staring coldly at the deity of the moon who was blocking his path. "What exactly do you want?" Leah asked bluntly, his right hand resting on the hilt of his sword at his waist. The deity of the moon smiled and said, "Your fate has deviated from the trajectory that the heavenly Tao had laid out for you. It seems you've had the help of a noble person, and not only that, but this change is ongoing. In the future, you might even form a connection with immortal gods. Although I'm not sure which immortal god it is, a bit of immortal fate has indeed touched you." Leah scoffed disdainfully and retorted, "What about you? Are you one of those sanctimonious Taoists who espouse the heavenly Tao and the celestial court? I don't believe in immortals, and I don't believe in gods. If there truly were immortal gods, how could this world have suffered so many tribulations? And each time, it must rely on his junior brother Gu to save the day? If there truly were immortal gods, then it could only be junior brother Gu. The nature of junior brother Gu would not allow others to sing his praises." The deity of the moon smiled, waved the horsetail whisk in his right hand towards the white jade bottle in his left, and from the mouth of the bottle, a droplet of liquid flew out, suspending between the two. "Our meeting is also a kind of fate. This is immortal brew, capable of transforming you completely, bestowing upon you an innate body. Let this be the foundation of a good relationship," said the deity of the moon with a smile. No sooner had he spoken than the droplet of immortal brew struck Leah's forehead fiercely. He had no chance to dodge. Leah, startled, quickly reached for his forehead, but there was nothing to touch. He could not track the droplet of immortal brew, nor could he detect any abnormalities within his body. The deity of the moon turned and walked away, saying, "This great world is no simple place." Having reached his current realm, it was no longer about simple chi absorption, but about comprehending the great Tao. The stronger his Tao intent, the higher his cultivation level would be. This was an intangible method of cultivation beyond the understanding of mortal spirits. Seeing that Guin was in a good mood, the ghost mother of Ephemera, who was following him, carefully asked, "Master, if Tian Hao encounters great trouble outside, would you intervene?" Over the 6,000 years, although Tian Hao remained a carefree, primordial immortal, his renown had grown significantly since he could battle across realms. Once, while on an expedition with the Qinquan sect, he had actually annihilated the physical body of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. That battle had vastly spread his fame, and he became known as the unmatched #1 prodigy in the world. Great fame inevitably brought more troubles. More and more prodigies came to challenge Tian Hao, but were soundly defeated. There were also those forces that wanted to enlist Tian Hao. Tian Hao's rejections inevitably made enemies. Recently, the ghost mother of Ephemera had been restless. Though she felt exceedingly safe within the dojo, she could only think that perhaps Tian Hao was in danger. Guin laughed and said, "Great trouble? There's no trouble that great. What if there is? Don't worry. He is unlike any prodigy you've met. He won't die young. His destiny pattern destined him to become the strongest. You simply don't understand what he represents. Even without me, his brilliance would shine bright." Guin explained, knowing that the ghost mother of Ephemera had the closest relationship with Tian Hao, even regarding her as a mother. He didn't mind revealing some karma to her. Hearing this, the ghost mother of Ephemera immediately felt relief. Although she didn't fully understand how powerful Tian Hao's destiny pattern was, she felt reassured by Guin's words. Usually, there's no need to be too diligent in managing the dojo. You also need time for enlightenment. The Tao treasure I bestowed upon you is your best aid in cultivation. Guin spoke sincerely. He had crafted a Tao treasure for the ghost mother of ephemera, known as the Nine Netherworlds Heaven-Reversing Flag. This flag embodied the path of yin and yang. It could reverse Sangtian and all things, and was extremely domineering. I won't forget about cultivating. The ghost mother of ephemera spoke earnestly, but to herself she added, nor forget about managing the dojo. She was well aware of why she possessed all that she did now. She could not relax, could not abandon the path she had taken, and must strive even harder. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Guin reflected on this, but soon he felt that something was amiss. The projection was finished. Then what? Guin furrowed his brows. He was puzzled but not rushed. He sat on the rock patiently waiting. Time swiftly passed. About half an hour later, two prompts appeared before him. Begin to consolidate the projection. Begin the transmission of the great Taoist insights. The spiritual energy within the Taoist field of the beginningless is suddenly stopped, causing everyone in the dojo to open their eyes. Before Guin could think further, endless insights of the great Tao surged into his mind, plunging his consciousness into chaos. At the edge of the Taoist field of the beginningless, at the entrance of the dojo, stood a stone door built by an exine. Ia the Novel Fire. Net ** website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Outside the stone door was a dense fog, appearing very mysterious. A figure emerged from the thick fog and stepped through the stone door. It was Tian Hao. Tian Hao advanced with a dragon's stride and a tiger's pace, with 3 differently shaped long spears, each about 10 feet long, floating behind him in a fan formation. He wore a smug smile on his face, muttering to himself, "This time I will definitely surprise Master." However, no sooner had the words left his mouth than he suddenly stopped, furrowing his brow as he looked towards the distant mountains with a look of surprise and doubt in his eyes. Why isn't the spiritual energy in the dojo moving? There is also an uncomfortably erratic force. He immediately leaped up, transforming into a rainbow light that flew away, quickly vanishing over the other side of the mountains. After a while, everyone gathered by a small river, whispering among themselves as they watched Gu and meditating on a rock across the river. Tian Hao was there too, looking at Gu and with curiosity. This was the first time he had seen his master enter a state of sudden enlightenment. In his eyes, his master was already the most powerful being. Could he possibly have an epiphany in such a Tao practice? Could Master be about to break through? Senior brothers, senior sisters, what realm has Master reached? Has he obtained the Taoist Zong Zizai Immortal realm? Tian Hao couldn't help but ask. Taoist Zong Zizai Immortal was a realm he had heard about in the last few decades, belonging to a great cultivator from the Tao court, capable of moving mountains and overturning seas. No one answered him because the others did not know Gu An's realm either. Blood Prison Great Saint scoffed. "Brat, you only need to know that Master is stronger than anyone you've ever met. Even those who created this world are far inferior to Master." Tian Hao, stirred by these words, inquired further, "Have you ever seen Master engage in a fight? Not just sparring,